If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 141, Rise. Friday, October 7th. Among the 80 to 90 anime series that premiered during Japan's autumn season, the vast majority had already aired their first episodes. The anime with the highest viewership ratings was Burning Sun Season 4. The anime with the best critical reception was One Punch Man. Although One Punch Man ranked only 4th in viewership, everyone understood the reason. It had premiered the previous week with very limited promotion and minimal buzz. This week, however, the situation was very likely to change. At 9 o'clock in the evening, the second episode of One Punch Man aired as scheduled. Unlike the first episode, which focused on introducing the world and the protagonist, the second episode formally began depicting the protagonist's daily environment and introduced a crucial supporting character, the mechanical cyborg Genos. This character held a pivotal position in the story. He was capable of overwhelming most opponents in combat, yet always ended up losing due to various unfortunate circumstances. As Saitama's first and most devoted disciple, Genos' appearance delivered an overwhelming impact to anime fans across Japan. In Rei's previous life, Genos' fight scenes in One Punch Man were famously animated with noticeably higher production quality than most others. He was the true budget warrior of the series. In this Japan, Rei fully carried forward this tradition. Whenever Genos entered battle, the animation quality was pushed to its limits. Moreover, viewers familiar with Rei's previous life experience could easily recognize references to other iconic works throughout the series. For example, Genos clearly drew inspiration from Iron Man. The vaccine man who appeared at the beginning of the series, if recolored green, strongly resembled Piccolo from Dragon Ball. Likewise, it was difficult to deny that the giant brothers from the first episode bore similarities to the colossal Titan from Attack on Titan. In Rei's previous life, anime fans already found Genos incredibly cool due to these familiar reference points. For Japanese anime fans, who lacked the same Marvel framework, the impact was even stronger. After Genos' debut and the first full display of his high-budget battle scenes, the mechanical fervor burning in viewers' hearts practically overflowed. Of course, no matter how spectacular Genos' battles were, he still had to lose when the story demanded it. Otherwise, how could Saitama's perfectly timed arrival and overwhelming strength be emphasized? The battle against Mosquito Girl at the start of the second episode was immensely satisfying for viewers. The latter half of the episode introduced the concept of the House of Evolution. The gorilla monster, ranked 3rd within the organization, was defeated by Genos. The second-ranked Beast King, however, was instantly annihilated by a single punch from Saitama. The episode ended with Saitama casually strolling down the street, carrying the Beast King's eyeball. The overall impression the second episode left on viewers could be summed up in one word: cool. The character designs were cool. The battles were cool. Even the narrative flow was cool. How is Shyroane's brain even wired? Genos is insanely cool. How can a mechanical cyborg fit my tastes this perfectly? The House of Evolution feels terrifyingly strong. Come on, these monsters aren't on the same level as Vaccine Man or the Giant Brothers from Episode 1. I bet the Giant Brothers could take down 10 Beast Kings easily, and Vaccine Man could probably wipe out the Giant Brothers without effort. Teacher Shyroane, please release a Genos figure. I'm begging you. Seriously, did all the strongest monsters appear in the first episode? Vaccine Man and the Giant Brothers still feel like the most intimidating enemies so far. The later monsters feel weaker, but the story is still amazing. I'm really looking forward to Saitama and Genos taking on the House of Evolution next week. That was unbelievably satisfying. The most exhilarating battle anime I've watched this year. No protagonist torture, no convoluted villain schemes, just the pure joy of crushing everything with one punch. In the face of absolute power, everything else feels insignificant. I hope Teacher Shyroane gives Genos even more fight scenes later. It's thrilling. I want more. The Beast King was intimidating too, but even he was obliterated instantly by Teacher Saitama. I really want to see what it looks like when Saitama fights without holding back. Don't forget to rate it on Opinion Hub after watching. Don't let One Punch Man's score drop. Compared to the first episode, the second episode of One Punch Man clearly ignited an even stronger response. Both its popularity and critical reception surged, and audience approval surpassed that of the premiere. After the second episode aired this week, the number of discussion threads about One Punch Man on major forums and websites across the internet exploded. In just one night, the already astonishing anime score climbed again, rising from 9.2 to 9.3. At the same time, the anime's average viewership rating this week surged to 4.96%, a massive leap compared to the previous week. At this point, even casual anime viewers in Japan finally realized something was off. Something was very wrong. The title of seasonal hegemon that Burning Sun had been confidently wearing no longer seemed secure. What kind of outrageous popularity curve was this for One Punch Man? Was this even normal? Now, the fans of Burning Sun genuinely began to feel pressure. This anime, One Punch Man, had already posted an absurdly high rating in its first week, and instead of stabilizing, it soared again in the second week. If this trend continued, how long could Burning Sun realistically maintain its grip on the top spot in seasonal viewership rankings? During the first week, REI's fans had merely watched and waited. By the second week, there was no need for restraint. They went all out. Their true colors emerged. Previously, it had been Burning Sun fans swaggering into REI's discussion boards. Now, the situation was completely reversed. Old posts mocking Shyroane, claiming that this so-called manga genius only ruled Dream Comic and wouldn't even crack the top 10 on Monogatari Comic, were all dug up and mercilessly ridiculed. Naturally, despite all this, the performance of Burning Sun Season 4, Episode 2, which aired that same evening, was still impressive. Its average viewership rating reached 5.21%, a slight increase over the previous week. However, its score dropped marginally, settling at 8.9. This, unfortunately, was a familiar issue across the anime industry. The first episode usually receives the highest investment and delivers explosive production quality. By the second episode, the quality often slips, sometimes dramatically, with some studios even resorting to still frame combat scenes that look like PowerPoint slides. A classic bait and switch. Burning Sun wasn't quite that extreme, but it was still obvious that the production quality of Season 4, Episode 2 had dipped compared to its premiere. Even so, this did not affect the overall situation. In the second week of the autumn anime season, Burning Sun still held the throne as the viewership champion. However, the anime ranked second in viewership changed. Last week, that position had belonged to the Isekai anime Flame Dragon's Breath. This week, it was One Punch Man. As for the other anime that had premiered, their ratings remained largely unchanged. Except for One Punch Man. Of course, the people most shocked by One Punch Man's performance were not the fans of Burning Sun. They were the staff of Illumination. When everyone had been working tirelessly on this anime, their most optimistic expectation had been merely securing a top 10 ranking for the season. But now, in the office, Himari stared at the detailed post-broadcast data for One Punch Man. She compared it again and again with the premiere data for Burning Sun. It wouldn't really. She muttered, top both viewership ratings and critical scores, would it? As that thought formed, Himari felt her limbs go slightly numb, a mix of nervousness and exhilaration surging through her. REI had been saying from the very beginning that the goal for this anime was number 1 in viewership. At the time, everyone had treated those words as the unrealistic ambition of a young man who had yet to experience the real world. But now, that ambition no longer sounded like a fantasy. It had become a very real possibility. Chapter 142, The Shifting Wind. People's motivation toward a certain endeavor is never static. Most employees at Illumination initially treated One Punch Man as just another job. But when the anime's performance began to climb steadily, becoming the second most watched and highest rated animation of the season within just 2 weeks of airing, everyone's passion was ignited. At present, One Punch Man has only aired its second episode. In reality, the 4th episode is already fully completed. The 5th episode is undergoing final subtitle and post-production adjustments. The 6th episode has finished voice recording. The 7th episode is in photography and compositing. Pushing further ahead, among the episodes scheduled to air this season, episodes 11 and 12 are still in the early stages of animation production. The storyboards are complete, animators are working day and night, and producers are urging all parties to adhere strictly to the schedule. These final episodes will not be fully completed until more than 2 months later. Everyone has been working extremely hard. Over the past 2 weeks, many staff members were visibly exhausted from staying up late night after night. But now, having confirmed the success of the earlier episodes, everyone felt invigorated, as if injected with a powerful stimulant. Originally, the final 2 episodes of the first season involved the battle against the cosmic overlord Boros. These battle-heavy storyboards demanded a higher animation frame rate and exceptionally strict drawing standards. REI had been uncompromising in his requirements, causing no small amount of suffering for the production team. Now, however, people were proactively reviewing their own work, looking for flaws and areas of improvement. After all, who among those who entered the animation industry didn't once harbor an animation dream? It was just that too many poorly made projects they had participated in over the years had gradually extinguished that passion. But the success of One Punch Man reignited it, across the entire company, from top to bottom. Following the strong performance of the anime, cooperating merchandise manufacturers also began to treat One Punch Man with renewed seriousness. High-definition BD discs entered production. Custom figurine prototypes began design. At the same time, media outlets across Japan started to intensify their coverage. It was true that One Punch Man currently ranked only second in viewership this season. But judging by its explosive reputation, how long could Burning Sin truly hold onto its number one spot? Naturally, the surge in popularity of One Punch Man also drew intense attention to one particular individual within the anime industry. That person was Shyroane, a freshman in the animation department at Vocational University. Historically speaking, most so-called genius manga artists or creators are remembered for only a single masterpiece. Once that breakthrough work concludes, their subsequent projects often fail to reach the same heights. But Shyroane, his two early manga, 5 cm per second and Tonight, brought him into the field of vision of Hojimori Group. Hikaru no Go made him famous overnight. Before Hunter x Hunter began serialization, the industry widely believed that Shyragane's shift toward battle shonen manga would result in a mediocre performance at best. Yet now, Hunter x Hunter stood only a hair's breadth away from topping Dream Comic. Most outrageous of all was One Punch Man. Written by Shyroane. Funded by Shyroane. An animation industry novice finding a production company, rushing out an anime in a few short months, and still achieving such popularity. A young manga artist and anime screenwriter with an apparently extraordinarily long creative lifespan. That was what truly made professionals throughout the industry feel pressure. They couldn't quite articulate what felt wrong. But more and more people were beginning to sense that there was something abnormal about Shyroane. It was simply too outrageous. This feeling intensified even further when Sunday arrived and the first week sales figures for Hunter x Hunter Volume 1, released the previous week, were announced. The volume directly topped Japan's single-volume manga sales chart, with first-week sales reaching 4.57 million copies. At that point, Japan's media completely lost its restraint, launching an all-out wave of reports centered on REI. Since entering university, instances of REI being observed had already become rare. But now, he felt exactly as he had back in high school. Even some upperclassmen from the same major began contacting him through classmates and instructors, hoping to leverage REI's investor connections to intern at Illumination, participate in One Punch Man's production, and use the experience to complete their graduation theses. REI rejected them all without hesitation. He had no interest in building such connections. He had known from the beginning that fame would attract all kinds of people, but actually dealing with these matters still drained a great deal of his energy. That evening, after finishing the day's manga work at home, REI chatted with Miyu via text. She found the situation rather amusing. But REI's purpose for contacting her was not to discuss any of that. He had received news from Miyu's older sister. Just yesterday, at the Hojimori comic serialization meeting, Miyu's fantasy battle manga, Touch of Glass, narrowly passed the review by a margin of 1 vote. It was officially scheduled to begin serialization in mid-November. Congratulations to you, last time my work was serialized alongside yours was 3 years ago, during the serialization of 5 cm per second. REI typed. You remember that clearly. Back then, 5 cm per second surpassed my work in performance after just 3 weeks. This time, I want you to experience that same sense of unwillingness. REI smiled as he read Miyu's swift reply. Miyu was simply the type of person who would never admit defeat, at least not verbally, no matter the circumstances. That's perfect. It's been a long time since I've read a Japanese fantasy manga that could truly immerse me. If you can create a manga that surpasses Hunter x Hunter, then the top spot in Dream Comic rightfully belongs to you. But since you're already serializing in Dream Comic, your real identity won't be something you can hide for much longer. If I can't hide it, then I won't. With a great manga artist like you at school to take the spotlight, do you really think I'd be afraid? Over the next few days, Rei threw himself fully into his various responsibilities. Meanwhile, the latest chapter of Hunter x Hunter was released on Wednesday alongside the newest issue of Dream Comic Journal. The Hunter exam, an arc that had been unfolding for 4 months, finally reached its climax in this week's installment. In the fourth phase of the exam, each candidate was assigned a number tag, and the organizers then designated a target number tag for them to seize. The rules were simple: protect your own number tag and obtain your targets. Those who succeeded would pass. Unfortunately for the protagonist, Gon, his target was Hisoka, the most terrifying, powerful, and perverted candidate in the exam, whose popularity had consistently remained within the top 3 since the manga's debut. In this week's chapter, Gon, fully aware that he could not defeat Hisoka head-on, chose instead to hide and observe him from the shadows. Under the moonlight, while Hisoka was preparing to kill his own target, Gon used his fishing rod to snatch the number tag from Hisoka's chest. After succeeding, Gon fled, but failed to realize that while he had been watching Hisoka, he himself had become someone else's prey. At the moment his guard dropped, a poisoned needle struck him, paralyzing his body. Both his own number tag and Hisoka's were taken. Once the chapter was released, it triggered a massive reaction online. Many Hunter x Hunter fans were heartbroken. But at the same time, they were completely captivated. After finishing the chapter, countless readers couldn't hold back. Even fans who were usually too lazy to vote logged onto the official website to cast their ballots. They weren't voting for Shyroane. They were voting for Hunter x Hunter. By Wednesday morning alone, an enormous wave of Hunter x Hunter fans had become active on the official site. Before this week, Source War Chronicle fans could still spar with Hunter x Hunter fans. But this time, Hunter x Hunter's popularity completely overwhelmed every other work in the same issue. The next day, Misaki arrived at the office early. Yet someone had arrived even earlier, the editor in charge of Source War Chronicle. When the two met, they exchanged only a brief nod. Neither of them had their mind on work. Judging from the explosive fan activity the night before, Hunter x Hunter's vote count this week would undoubtedly surpass last week's. Which meant it was very likely to happen this week. Misaki glanced at the time on her computer. In an hour and a half, the rankings for this week's Dream Comic Journal would be announced. Chapter 143, Reaching the Top. As time passed, the editors in the office took their seats one by one, and working hours finally began. Misaki quickly handled the work at hand, while glancing at the time on her computer every few minutes. And under that nervous tension, at a certain moment, a new email arrived in her inbox. Misaki took several deep breaths before finally opening it. What greeted her eyes was the very first line of the document. Voting rank 1, Hunter x Hunter, total votes, 900,012 votes. Misaki stared at the screen in a daze for nearly half a minute. Although, given Hunter x Hunter's reputation, reaching the top of Dream Comic had only been a matter of time, when it truly happened, it still felt unreal. After all, it had only been 4 months since Hunter x Hunter began serialization. At that moment, many people in the editorial department unconsciously turned their gazes toward her. In the first half of this year, Hikaru no Go had dominated the journal. In the second half of the year, Hunter x Hunter had now also reached the top. One manga artist, 2 works, both topping the charts in the same year in a top Japanese manga journal like Dream Comic, who would have dared imagine such a thing? So Hunter x Hunter really took first place. I never expected the record held by Source War Chronicle for 3 consecutive years to be broken twice in a single year, by Shyroane, no less. It's not that Source War Chronicle has declined. It's just that Hikaru no Go and Hunter x Hunter are too popular. And anyone with eyes can see that Hunter x Hunter's potential is far greater than Hikaru no Go's. The group has already made it a key IP, animation, movies, games, merchandise, everything is in motion. Misaki is really lucky. She managed to discover 2 such terrifying talents. You mean Saki, whose new work will begin serialization next month? Exactly. That work is quite interesting too, it's just that Shyroane has always overshadowed him. It's really a pity about One Punch Man. Shyroane was originally planning to submit it to our journal. Editor-in-Chief Han even consulted higher management, but it was rejected outright due to regulations. If One Punch Man had been serialized here as well, Dream Comic Journal might have broken 20 million weekly sales with 2 top-tier hits. As the editors spoke, their expressions became complicated. Envy toward Misaki was inevitable, but so was regret over One Punch Man. Shyroane had self-funded an animation, partnered with a relatively small production company, and aired it in an upper-middle time slot on Capital TV station. And yet, within 2 weeks of airing, its ratings had already approached 5%, directly challenging Burning Sun Season 4, the second-ranked adaptation from Monogatari comic. If One Punch Man had truly been serialized in Dream Comic, its popularity might not have been inferior to Hunter x Hunter. As for journal sales, they always fluctuated. Strong works could push sales up rapidly, while the conclusion of pillar titles without replacements could cause drops of 4 to 5 million copies. With Hunter x Hunter's continued serialization and word-of-mouth spread, Hojimori comic had already attracted many readers from rival journals. Its weekly sales had risen by nearly 1 million copies, reaching 18.6 million, temporarily surpassing Manga and ranking third on last week's national sales chart. If another top-tier hit had joined the lineup, it might not have surpassed Monogatari Comics' 25 million weekly sales, but overtaking Mecha Manga's 21 million was not impossible. But now, what a pity, an editor sighed softly. Even if Hunter x Hunter remained at the top, it would still be difficult for Dream Comic to surpass Mecha Manga in the short term. Everyone in the editorial department understood this. Editor-in-Chief Han understood it. The group's upper management understood it as well. But compared to the quiet regret of lower-level editors, the higher UPS felt something closer to irritation and resentment. After all, what was worse than missing out on a popular work? Missing out on a popular work that was originally meant for your own journal, had been personally approved by the editor-in-chief, and was only rejected due to rigid regulations. Compared to rules, works like Hikaru no Go and Hunter x Hunter were infinitely more valuable. But who could have expected Shyroane to be so abnormal? Releasing one hit after another. News of Hojimori Group rejecting One Punch Man quickly spread throughout the industry and online. Mockery and ridicule piled up, placing immense pressure on the group's executives. They weren't board members, just senior employees. If public opinion continued to escalate, the consequences would be serious. Though the decision had been theirs, tracing it back, it was still Shyroane who caused the trouble. You're only 18, why are you working like a model laborer? Why not wait until Hunter x Hunter finished serialization before submitting One Punch Man? Instead, you went off to make an anime yourself. Do you really have the resources and connections to fully exploit that IP? What a waste. But no matter how dissatisfied they felt, they dared not voice it. The die had been cast. All they could do was hope that One Punch Man's popularity would stop growing. As for Hunter x Hunter, now that it had surpassed Source War Chronicle, it had officially become the journal's flagship title. Top-tier promotional resources would be continuously poured into it for the foreseeable future. And indeed, that was exactly what happened. In the evening, Hojimori Group officially announced Hunter x Hunter's achievements on its website. That same night, on major search platforms and manga forums, the hot search terms and discussion intensity for Hunter x Hunter increased significantly. Many manga critics also, by prior arrangement, began creating manga review videos for Hunter x Hunter. Having received promotional fees, the necessary publicity naturally had to be implemented as quickly as possible. Rei did not know, nor did he want to know, what the people at Hojimori Group were thinking. That evening, Misaki invited Rei and her sister Mayu to dinner at a restaurant in the center of Tokyo, which also served as a celebration for Hunter x Hunter reaching the top spot. The two sisters, Misaki in a red dress and Mayu in a black dress, sat in the restaurant, radiant and captivating, frequently attracting the gazes of the surrounding diners. When Rei arrived right on time, many people present sighed. "Oh, sorry, I'm the last one to arrive," Rei said with a wave and a smile. "You're too slow. My sister and I have been waiting for you for 20 minutes, Mayu said. "There are still 3 minutes until the scheduled time. I'm not late. When you're eating with girls, can't you arrive half an hour early?" "Half an hour? When I'm in good form, that's enough time for me to draw more than half a page of a manga manuscript," Rei said calmly. "Time is precious. How can it be wasted like that?" Mayu gasped and looked at her sister, only to see Misaki gazing at Rei with clear approval. It was over. These two had completely abnormal thought processes. She did not know whether to complain about Rei's inhuman drawing speed, or about the fact that, in his eyes, their first real meeting in a month was less important than half a manga page. At this moment, Misaki spoke. "Congratulations, Rei. Hunter x Hunter has reached the top spot." "Same to you, Rei replied with a smile. Enmyu, although I already congratulated you, let me say it again in person. Congratulations on Touch of Glass getting serialization approval. I hope its popularity climbs quickly and reaches second place. Second. Mayu scoffed. That's nonsense. It's definitely going to reach the top. Before Hunter x Hunter finishes, you don't have a chance, Rei replied mercilessly. Chapter 144, This is just the beginning. I burst out laughing. This anime is too interesting. When the rhinoceros beetle activated Azure mode, I thought Saitama couldn't handle it and got stunned. I really thought his character design was about to collapse, with the protagonist completely suppressed and unable to fight back. I never expected Saitama was only stunned because today was Saturday, and by fighting the monster here, he missed the supermarket sale. When he roared that line and punched the rhinoceros beetle into minced meat, I was stunned too. I really love this anime. There's no deep misery, no scheming or plotting, just a lazy protagonist whose response to being provoked is punching you into oblivion. The end of the world isn't as despairing as Saitama missing the supermarket sale. Speaking of which, Saitama is so strong and has defeated so many powerful monsters before. Why isn't he famous? Even these weak monsters cause massive disasters to the city. Saitama's past actions should count as saving cities, right? Why is he still so poor that he needs supermarket discounts just to eat? I don't get it. Maybe Saitama is the type who just leaves after the deed is done. If I were Saitama, I'd already be the richest man in the world and the king of everything, not buying discounted groceries. I guess you shouldn't expect that kind of moral standard. Saitama's dream is to be a hero without constraints. Only someone powerful enough to act on personal principles can be called a hero. Being a hero doesn't mean having morals imposed by an organization or law. Anyone who uses force to dominate the world is called a monster in this anime. Get that straight. This is the most satisfying anime I've watched in the last 3 years. It's just a shame the production company is unknown and the merchandise partners are terrible. The ratings and popularity are so high, yet the official site doesn't even have a merchandise pre-order page. Not a single hero or monster figure exists. I want to spend money, but I don't even get the chance. After all, it's not produced by Hojimori Group, so the industrial chain can't keep up. Teacher Shyroane has to manage Hunter x Hunter, oversee the One Punch Man anime, attend university and negotiate cooperation deals on weekends. Give him a break. Saitama is superhuman, but Shyroane is just 18. 18 years old. I feel embarrassed complaining now. When I was 18, I was still asking my mom if I could open a carton of calcium milk. Shyroane has already reached this level. Enough said. Since there's no merchandise pre-order page, I'll go to Opinion Hub and give it a high score. Damn it, I only started watching from episode 3. This is torture. When will the Blu-ray discs be released? I need to catch up on the first 2 episodes. Same here. The title didn't interest me at all at first, but a friend forced me to watch tonight's episode. I won't underestimate flashy anime titles ever again. On Friday night, after episode 3 of One Punch Man aired, the discussion frenzy far exceeded that of the previous 2 weeks. Even the best works need time for word of mouth to ferment. The extremely high ratings and reputation of One Punch Man over the past 2 weeks had already spread among the anime community, and many casual viewers joined the binge-watching crowd out of curiosity. This episode happened to feature the battle between Saitama and the Azure Rhinoceros Beetle, and the Saitama training method instantly became a viral meme. The discussion heat generated after this broadcast far surpassed previous episodes. The next day, Saturday, the viewership ratings for episode 3 of One Punch Man were announced. 5.35%. After this data was released, major media outlets stopped holding back and began praising One Punch Man enthusiastically. For an anime with strong word of mouth, high ratings, and overwhelming praise, no media outlet would be foolish enough to publish criticism at this moment. Compared to the previous week, the ratings for episode 3 surged again. It also became the highest single episode anime rating recorded since the start of the autumn season. Another day passed, and Sunday arrived. After episode 3 of the season's former hegemon anime, Burning Sin, aired and its overall rating settled at 5.29%, it was effectively confirmed that One Punch Man had surpassed Burning Sin in just 3 weeks. Even if the rankings change later, Burning Sin's proclaimed title as the seasonal hegemon had already vanished. Even if it lasted only 1 week, can a work that has been overtaken still be called a hegemon? Moreover, will it really be only once? In the 4th week, 5th week, and beyond, can Burning Sin truly reclaim the lead? As expected, many works crowned hegemon before airing collapse spectacularly. It's just that One Punch Man, this dark horse, was far too overwhelming. Only 3 weeks. As the media frantically reported on both works, Shyroane's fans inevitably clashed online with fans Burning Sin. Neither side yielded, and verbal warfare intensified. This large-scale fan conflict inevitably produced another result. One side represented Shyroane, the most successful manga artist currently under Hojimori Group. The other represented the author whose work consistently ranked second in popularity at Monogatari Comic. The dispute was quickly exaggerated by media outlets into a commercial rivalry between Dream Comic and Monogatari Comic. Although One Punch Man had absolutely no connection to Hojimori Group, never underestimate the media's ability to gossip. The rise of genius manga artist Shyroane, strongly challenging Monogatari Comics industry hegemony. Although the weekly sales of Dream Comic have climbed to 19 million copies, there is still a huge gap compared to Monogatari Comics' 25.5 million copies. While Hunter x Hunter may not lead Dream Comic Journal to surpass Monogatari Comic in total sales, will Hunter x Hunter achieve a crushing victory over the Monogatari Comic Big 3 in terms of the average sales volume per collected tankban volume of its own work? One Punch Man becomes the hottest anime of the autumn season. Perhaps, it will also become the hottest anime in Japan this year. Japan's anime market started this year with Hikaru no Go, winning the January Winter Season Ratings Championship. Will it conclude with One Punch Man, taking the October Autumn Season Championship? Who exactly is Shyroane, and why are all his works exploding in popularity? I can already see the blueprint for the best anime of the year in One Punch Man. Fans across the entire network are calling for Shyroane to quickly open a merchandise store for One Punch Man figures. Unlike Hikaru no Go, which was critically acclaimed but lacked mass market appeal, Hikaru no Go's profit channels were very limited due to its subject matter. However, if One Punch Man continues to develop as it is now, it is highly likely to become a major IP anime. In the same week, Hunter x Hunter topped the popularity charts on Dream Comic. One Punch Man topped the ratings and scores in the autumn anime market. Shyroane showed all creators in the Japan animation industry what a true genius is. Shyroane is absolutely the greatest genius in the Japan animation industry in the last 30 years. The frenzied reporting and praise from the news media even influenced reality. The animation college where REI studied immediately posted REI's photo in the college section of the official school website. They grandly and vividly introduced REI's achievements studying in the animation department of Vocational University in a 10,000-word feature for the following year's recruitment materials, completely ignoring the fact that REI had been enrolled for less than 2 months, hadn't finished his basic courses, and frequently took leave to handle various matters. But now, none of that mattered. Almost every subject teacher would cast a benevolent gaze toward REI when teaching in class. When REI needed to take leave to handle matters, his counselor not only gave him the green light the entire time but also clearly hinted to REI that he didn't need to worry about final class participation scores or credits. He wouldn't fail or receive low marks just because he took leave to handle things, provided he participated in the final exams on time. After all, among all the institutions in Japan offering animation production majors, you would be hard-pressed to find a second student as outrageous as REI. 2 months after starting school, REI, a freshman, the screenwriter and investor of One Punch Man, who also deeply participated in the anime's music production, saw its ratings reach the top. This was publicity capital and teaching performance. It didn't matter what connection the birth of One Punch Man had to the school, as long as REI was a student there, that was enough. The massive popularity of One Punch Man led to Vocational University becoming a gathering spot for large numbers of One Punch Man anime fans. They and the Hunter x Hunter fans often teamed up to wait by the school's front and back gates for REI as he left for animation production company. This is truly exhausting. Inside Illumination Production Company. After REI and the producer Himura finished watching the completed 6th episode of the One Punch Man anime, he couldn't help but sigh. Exhausted? Are you tired just from watching one episode of anime? Himura asked curiously. I was talking about the journey from school to here, REI replied. I was blocked by over 200 fans at the school gate. Taking photos and signing autographs left my hand aching. Others would be envious if they were in your shoes, Himura shot REI a look. Look at me, I wish one day hundreds of fans would surround me when I step out of the company gates and praise me. But unfortunately, most anime fans only care if the voice actors are pretty or handsome, and then they focus on the screenwriters and directors. Many people are not even interested in the names of producers like me. Miss Himari, if Illumination were to publicize your photo, you would probably gain many fans, Rei said. Hearing this, Himari's eyes shifted. She simply smiled and steered the conversation elsewhere. Speaking of which, Rei, what are your plans for One Punch Man? Plans? Yes, plans, Himari said. For example, how long do you plan the content of this work to be? To what extent will you develop its IP? Haven't you thought carefully about this as the creator and copyright holder? Let's break even first, Rei said with a chuckle. For the past 3 years, most of the money I earned drawing manga was poured into this anime. Once the work recoups its costs, I will naturally establish a related animation company to manage the IP. If One Punch Man were serialized by Hojimori Group, all operations and IP promotion would be funded, staffed, and executed by the group. Rei could simply collect commissions each year. Although the percentage would be small, it would be stable and hassle-free. Moreover, Hojimori Group has international distribution channels, allowing merchandise to be sold overseas. Managing the IP independently meant bearing profits and losses, investing money, manpower, and time, and consuming significant mental energy. As for market expansion, that depended entirely on the quality of the work. Fortunately, given the current popularity of One Punch Man, the financial pressure for merchandise promotion and advertising would be far lower. As for the length of this work, Rei mused. It will last at least 3 to 4 seasons. I mentioned this before. I am not interested in the model where companies spend 7 or 8 years dragging out a single work. I plan to finish it in one go. It will probably air continuously for about a year. Furthermore, I am currently negotiating with Capital TV station about moving One Punch Man to a prime time slot next season. Himari was taken aback. She hesitated for a moment before asking, Rei, while you are responsible for the Hunter x Hunter manga serialization, can you really maintain such high-intensity script creation for One Punch Man? As for that, Rei smiled. You'll find out over the next year. What I can guarantee is that the later plot of the One Punch Man anime will be far more exciting than the early stages. Although One Punch Man is doing quite well now, this is just the beginning. Chapter 145, Exploding Popularity. In the following weeks, the development of One Punch Man was basically consistent with what Rei had said. The 5.35% viewership rating of the third episode was not the limit for One Punch Man. Because strictly speaking, One Punch Man is not Saitama's solo animated show at all. Instead, it is an ensemble animation featuring various heroes, with Saitama as the key character connecting them all. Sonic and the Hero Association made their appearances. The Hero Association's ranking system, from S-Class to D-Class heroes, was revealed. Furthermore, the Hero Association mistakenly believed that the House of Evolution was eradicated by Genos, and that Saitama was just a small fry who tagged along with Genos to steal battle achievements. As a result, in the Hero Association's assessment, Genos was rated as an S-Class hero, while Saitama was only given a C-Class rating. The entire world building of the work was thus unveiled. From the 4th to the 7th episode, the animation's viewership ratings climbed from 5.37% to 5.45% to 5.52% and finally to 5.61%. Although the growth rate slowed, the viewership rating was clearly still increasing. Initially, everyone thought that while One Punch Man's third episode viewership surpassed Burning Sun Season 4, it was only temporary, and that the autumn anime market would see the two works alternate at the top. But no one expected that Burning Sun, a highly popular manga adaptation with a massive fanbase, would be defeated so quickly in its confrontation with Shyroane's original animation. The viewership rating of One Punch Man was rising every week. However, Burning Sun's viewership basically stagnated at around 5.30%, and after being surpassed in the third episode, it showed no opportunity to fight back. Even if the manga's core fans worked together, it was to no avail. After all, true manga fans are those who already follow updates weekly. How many casual anime viewers could they really persuade? By contrast, the weekly increase in One Punch Man's ratings showed that even viewers who missed earlier episodes could jump in midway and still enjoy it thoroughly. Moreover, the most impressive aspect of One Punch Man was not just its popularity, but its speed in generating memes. Every week, new characters appeared, whether monsters or heroes, and each character's storyline produced fresh memes that entertained fans for the entire week. Among them, the most classic was Sonic the Speed-O Sound, who appeared in Episode 7. As a speed-type assassin, Sonic completely disregarded Saitama. When confronting him, he intended to overwhelm Saitama with speed, only to be unexpectedly outmatched and struck squarely in his most vulnerable part by Saitama's rising uppercut. In Rei's previous life, the anime did not specify the severity of Sonic's injuries, but later official materials confirmed that Sonic was lucky, losing only one egg and keeping the other. Of course, Rei did not miss this meme opportunity in this version of One Punch Man, and directly incorporated the relevant plot. As a result, after Episode 7 aired, Single Egg Sonic became an explosively popular meme. A villain, an assassin, a morally grey character, simply because of this meme and his handsome design, directly topped the character popularity rankings in the domestic animation industry that week. In the following days, a large number of people cosplaying Sonic appeared at major anime conventions. Under Rei's creator account, countless fans called for the collaborating merchandise company to produce Sonic's signature bodysuit. At this point, less than 2 months had passed since One Punch Man first aired. This anime may not have received as much critical acclaim as Hikaru no Go at the beginning, but in terms of popularity and spread, it had already surpassed it among domestic anime fans. This was a reflection of genre advantage. In terms of artistic depth, One Punch Man might not catch up to Hikaru no Go, but its genre allowed it to surpass it in popularity and commercial value. During this same period, Mayu's new manga, Touch of Glass, also began serialization. Its first week ranking was 17, followed by rankings of 14 and 16 in the second and third weeks. The results were stable, but her bold declaration before serialization, about surpassing Hunter x Hunter within half a year, now seemed distant. Seeing friends and colleagues discuss One Punch Man both online and offline, she was not exactly jealous, but she was undeniably envious. Even her mother, at her peak, had never produced a work as popular as One Punch Man. This anime truly belonged to a genre that others could not understand, learn, or imitate. Every week brought new characters, and despite the protagonist being invincible for 7 episodes straight, viewers were not bored. Instead, they grew increasingly eager for what came next. I wonder what kind of brain Rei has. 5 centimeters per second, tonight, Hikaru no Go, Hunter x Hunter, and now One Punch Man. How can one person create so many works of different styles, all of which explode in popularity? Could it be that I'm not a manga genius after all, just an ordinary person? Mayu was stubborn with Rei, but when alone with her sister, she tended to overthink. Don't think too much, Misaki said softly, taking a sip of tea. Looking at young famous manga artists in domestic history, many hadn't achieved as much as you at the same age. It's just that Rei is too abnormal. I don't know about the future, but at the age of 18, no one in domestic manga history has achieved more than him. Sometimes, if you can't be better, you just can't. If you can't take first place, then take second. Isn't second place just the biggest loser? Mayu said. Sophistry. Then wouldn't last place be the smallest loser? If losing a little counts as losing, would you rather be last or second? Misaki replied. Mayu froze. But I just want to surpass him once. From childhood to adulthood, Rei is the only person I've ever wanted to surpass, and I haven't even seen a single opportunity. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Misaki said. Do you remember what Go Saint Kawabara said in Hikaru no Go? What did he say? Go requires 2 players. The birth of a famous game, the appearance of the hand of God, requires 2 equally matched geniuses to create. You mean Rei and I are those 2 geniuses? Mayu's eyes lit up like crescent moons. I didn't expect you, sis, to think so highly of me. No, Misaki replied calmly. I mean, you might not be able to reach Rei's height, but having someone constantly above you can actually stimulate your potential. You've been a manga artist for 6 years. For the first 3, your results were lukewarm. But Rei's appearance, in just 3 years, pushed you forward and brought you into the main journal of Dream Comic. You are not the equally matched genius in Rei's life, but for you, Rei's influence might be greater than that of a so-called equally matched genius. Are you encouraging me, or are you still my sister? Mayu snapped. I'm just stating a fact, Misaki said with a smile. All right. I'm going to an anime convention in 2 weeks. I already bought tickets. The clothes I requested from REI's collaborating merchandise manufacturer have arrived. I'm going to cosplay as Fubuki from One Punch Man. If you're interested, you can come along. You can cosplay as Fubuki's sister, Tatsumaki. Okay, I'll go too. Mayu immediately brightened up at the mention of going out to have fun. Then she reacted. Fubuki? Tatsumaki? Who are they? Why don't I know them? They're characters that will appear soon in One Punch Man. Since REI has been discussing collaborations with merchandise manufacturers, he sent character designs for many future characters to the partners in advance, asking them to prepare related products. I overheard this when I went to his place to pick up manuscripts, so I had the idea to ask REI for 2 sets of outfits that were already designed but not yet released. I see. REI really trusts you. He doesn't even hide such confidential IP operations from you. I'm not the type to blab. Besides, a lot of information about REI's works is hard to hide from me. How many connections can a manga artist who draws all day really make in Japan? Misaki said. The animation production company for One Punch Man, Illumination, the merchandise manufacturer, Atsuo, and the distributor, Hideki, were all introduced by me. Of course, with One Punch Man's popularity, even without my help, many partners would have approached him. But it would have taken him a lot of time and energy to deal with them. Naturally, he wouldn't avoid me in these matters. As a manga editor, you introduce these 2 artists under your wing. Aren't you afraid Hojimori Group will find out and fire you? Mayu asked. I'm a manga editor out of interest. I don't do unrelated things during work hours. I entered this industry because I don't have talent for manga creation, so I wanted to discover more excellent creators, Misaki said. You really don't care about the small salary Hojimori Group gives editors? 10 years of work wouldn't even earn as much as a year's interest on the inheritance Mom left us. Mayu was momentarily speechless. Her sister always shut down topics effortlessly, so she returned to the original one. By the way, why am I cosplaying as the older sister Tatsumaki while you're cosplaying as the younger sister Fubuki? Isn't that reversed? You haven't seen REI's character designs for One Punch Man yet, so I won't blame you, Misaki said, glancing her sister up and down. As One Punch Man became increasingly popular, the most distressed party was actually the Hojimori Group. The 2 high-level executives who had originally rejected both One Punch Man and Hunter x Hunter for simultaneous serialization had already been demoted. Even so, it did nothing to stop peers in the Japanese manga industry from enjoying the spectacle. Rejecting a work like One Punch Man was undeniably laughable. Had it been serialized normally, it would surely have become another pillar manga. Regret was meaningless now. However, in late November, the Hojimori Group entrusted Misaki to inform REI that if he had new ideas, he could submit them freely, and the rule against simultaneous serialization would no longer apply. REI's response was simple. He was not Superman. Managing 3 ongoing works at once would be impossible unless he dropped out of school entirely. November passed, and December arrived. By then, the Hunter x Hunter manga had finally concluded the Hunter exam arc. Hisoka, Killua, Kurapika, Leorio, Gon, the chairman. A large cast of distinctive characters was firmly established. The Zaldik family, the Phantom Troop, and the most important combat system in Hunter x Hunter, Nen, also revealed their first hints when Killua's older brother, Illumi, used it during the final stage of the exam. The Hunter exam ended with Gon badly injured, Hanzo conceding, Killua returning home, and Leorio and Kurapika passing. Among the 4 main characters, only Killua failed the exam. Next came the truly explosive arcs, Heaven's Arena and the Phantom Troop arc, the early to mid highlights of Hunter x Hunter. Although the manga had already topped Dream Comics' popularity rankings with just the Hunter exam arc, REI knew very well that it had not yet begun to show its real strength. His goal was never simply to be number 1 on Dream Comic. At the same time, starting from episode 8, the One Punch Man anime entered the Deep Sea King arc. Chapter 146, Moved. Time arrived in December, and autumn was also coming to an end. Following the end of the Hunter exam arc, this manga also entered a new chapter. The number of weekly votes for Hunter x Hunter on Dream Comic was increasing, already approaching the 1 million mark. As for the anime market, there was basically no suspense left. The One Punch Man anime definitely suppressed Burning Sun in terms of overall popularity. Although fans of Shyroane and fans of Burning Sun were still arguing fiercely online, refusing to yield to each other, the data did not lie. One Punch Man was clearly superior to Burning Sun in every metric. The anime industry is a highly commercialized industry, the work that receives the most market attention and has the most paying fans is the best work. This quarter, Hunter x Hunter and One Punch Man were definitely works that changed the existing structure of the anime/manga industry. And the key figure connecting these two works, Rei, was no longer regarded as a newcomer or a young person in the Japanese anime industry. He was an absolute top-tier creator in the Japanese animation and manga industry. Furthermore, just in time for December, the anime merchandise customized by Rei and commissioned from various Japanese companies finally began selling on the official website. Only now could the One Punch Man anime be considered to have officially started recovering its costs. BD discs, figures, clothing, props appearing in the work, collaborative products. As long as the work was popular enough, the cost and difficulty of promoting these items to the market rapidly decreased. If Rei had time on weekdays, he would also visit local anime conventions and act commercial streets. Since a month ago, these places had basically been occupied by elements related to One Punch Man. Friday, December 3rd. Tonight was the premiere of the 9th episode of One Punch Man. In the previous 2 episodes, the Deep Sea King, the mysterious being who could be considered to have the most screen time in the first season of One Punch Man, made his appearance. From the moment this character appeared, the members of the Hero Association launched successive battles against him. A-Class Rank 28, Stinger. A-Class Rank 20, Lightning Max. The last S-Class Hero, Pori Prisoner. And S-Class Rank 17, Genos. These characters appeared one after another and were all defeated by the Deep Sea King in successive battles. A character like this was not even considered a dragon level, but merely a demon level threat. The plot build-up surrounding the Deep Sea King over 2 to 3 consecutive weeks made the hearts of Japanese anime fans race. Half an hour before the premiere of the 9th episode, the major forums were already buzzing with arguments. So when is Saitama going to appear? I really can't watch anymore. Is the Hero Association that useless? 2 S-Class heroes and 2 A-Class heroes defeated by 1 demon-level threat. Seriously, has Genos ever defeated an enemy after appearing? His hardware strength feels extremely high, yet he somehow loses every time for inexplicable reasons. Genos feels like a watershed for power levels. Anyone who can beat him is a decent threat. Anyone who can't is not worth Saitama's intervention. If just the Deep Sea King can defeat 2 S-Class heroes, wouldn't the Giant Brothers, Vaccine Man and Rhinoceros Beetle from earlier episodes have wiped out the Hero Association? Who else can fight besides Saitama? Didn't the earlier plot mention them? There are many powerhouses in the Hero Association. Like Blast, S-Class Rank 1, and King, the strongest man on Earth. Even though they've only been mentioned, maybe their strength isn't inferior to Saitama's. No chance. The strongest combatant in this work is Saitama. Do not fantasize that anyone can compete with him. If such a character appeared, the plot of One Punch Man would collapse. Anyway, the most formidable threat so far is the Dream Subterranean King, who fought Saitama to a standstill in his dream, the absolute number 1. Exactly. Compared to the Subterranean King, all these monsters are trash. There were 10 minutes left until the premiere of the 9th episode of One Punch Man. Jun glanced at the flood of online comments, took a deep breath, and shut down his computer. Although he knew the formula of One Punch Man, a powerful enemy appears, the heroes fail, and Saitama delivers the decisive blow, he never grew tired of watching it. Jun knew exactly why. The true highlight of this work was not Saitama's one-punch kill after his appearance. Rather, it was the courage displayed by the people who appeared before Saitama, when facing enemies they could not possibly overcome. Genos, in order to save a girl, had the upper hand when facing the Deep Sea King, yet chose to use his body to block the opponent's corrosive acid and was defeated. A-Class heroes Stinger and Lightning knew they couldn't win, but they didn't run away either. And which heroes would appear this week? Filled with anticipation, Jun's TV paused when the clock hit 9:30, and the screen jumped to the opening theme song of One Punch Man. After the opening theme ended, the plot continued from the previous week: a rainy night, dark clouds, a dim atmosphere, lightning flashing, and the terrifying, cruel gaze of the Deep Sea King. A group of people were forced to retreat step by the Deep Sea King, and heroes who rushed in were defeated one after another. Because the Deep Sea King was given sufficient plot development, the sense of oppression created by this character far surpassed that of previous monsters. In the anime, the Deep Sea King walked toward a group of unarmed civilians. At this moment, a man riding a bicycle, wearing armor and showing an uneasy, nervous expression stepped forward and stood in front of the Deep Sea King. C-Class Rank 1, Momen Rider. June was stunned. Momen Rider? This guy had been mentioned in the previous plot. He was just a pure ordinary person. It could only be said that his physical fitness was excellent among ordinary people, but compared to a true monster, he was still at the level of an ordinary person. He angrily charged toward the Deep Sea King, who was about to attack the civilians, but the Deep Sea King merely grabbed his fist with a giant webbed hand, like a cat playing with a mouse, and flung him to the ground. Forget it, Saitama should just come out, June muttered, frowning. He had thought this part of the plot would continue sending more S-class heroes to deal with the Deep Sea King. Why did a C-class hero appear? The Deep Sea King threw Momen Rider to the side of the road, preparing to continue his attack. But after only 2 steps, Momen Rider, lying on the ground covered in blood, climbed back up and tightly hugged the Deep Sea King's massive leg, preventing him from moving forward. What is he doing? Jun's idiocy aversion syndrome kicked in. He actually hated it when incompetent characters who overestimated themselves constantly appeared in anime. They talk about upholding their inner beliefs, but in reality, they are making meaningless sacrifices. Sometimes, powerlessness is simply powerlessness. If you can't win, you can't win. If you can't protect others, at least protect yourself. The Deep Sea King wasn't even focusing on him and was about to attack other civilians. He could have just quietly run away, and no one would condemn a C-class hero for inaction. But just as June was thinking this, Momen Rider, lying in a pool of blood with his forehead and nose bleeding, struggled to get back up in the anime. I know, no one expects anything from me. I understand that better than anyone. As soon as these 2 sentences were uttered, Jun's heart trembled. Chapter 147, Irony. More than anyone, I understand that I can't accomplish anything significant as a C-class hero. More than anyone, I understand how weak I am. I can't beat you. Momen Rider raised his head and looked toward the Deep Sea King's massive body not far away. What are you muttering about? The Deep Sea King chuckled disdainfully. At that moment, the anime's background music suddenly changed tempo. This isn't about whether I can win. It's about the fact that I must stand in front of you. Momen Rider roared. Die. The Deep Sea King laughed. Amid the surging, emotional background music, the ordinary civilians Momen Rider was trying to protect began cheering for him. Momen Rider let out a roar and charged straight at the Deep Sea King. June was completely swept up by the emotion of the scene. He was deeply moved. Although he felt that Momen Rider was foolish, there was a fundamental difference between someone who doesn't realize they are foolish and someone who understands it fully, yet still clings to their conviction. It wasn't that Momen Rider didn't know he couldn't defeat the Deep Sea King. Rather, it was his pride as a hero and his character that prevented him from abandoning the civilians and running away. The background music swelled to its peak, and June found himself shouting internally. Charge, Momen Rider! Then came the next shot. Like a human swatting a fly, the Deep Sea King casually slapped the charging Momen Rider, sending him flying more than 10 meters away. Just as Momen Rider was about to crash into the hard ground, a yellow figure caught him. Well done! That was a magnificent fight. Saitama smiled gently at the man he had only met once before. At that moment, June genuinely felt a lump rise in his throat. Saitama, you finally arrived. What followed was familiar, just like every other monster Saitama had defeated before. The Deep Sea King initially underestimated the bald man in the yellow cape. But after a single exchange, he immediately sensed something was wrong. Even so, he remained arrogantly confident. He rambled on about racial superiority, claiming the Deep Sea clan was far above humans. Saitama's ears rang from the noise, and finally, unable to tolerate it any longer, he threw a casual punch. This demon-level threat, who had rampaged through 3 cities and defeated countless heroes, was instantly blown into a spray of flesh by Saitama. If the episode had ended there, viewers would have simply been moved by the existence of a character like Momen Rider, someone who placed ideals above his own life. And that would have been all. They would have sighed, felt touched, and moved on. But what followed changed everything. With S-class heroes Genos and Pori prisoner defeated, and A-class heroes Stinger and Lightning Max also taken down, a bald, caped man ranked C-class number 2 defeated the Deep Sea King with a single punch. Even the civilians Saitama had just saved began to change their tune. The Deep Sea King was taken down by a C-class hero with one punch? How useless were those heroes who fell earlier? A-class and S-class are just empty titles. But they risked their lives to protect us. Who doesn't risk their life? If you can't defeat a monster, what kind of hero are you? Jun felt a surge of anger when he saw this. Whether in anime or in reality, this kind of casual belittling of others' sacrifices always disgusted him. Saitama also sensed the public's growing distrust toward heroes through the murmurs of the crowd. And so, Saitama chose to discredit himself. He deliberately guided the crowd into believing that his victory over the Deep Sea King was only possible because the previously defeated heroes had already exhausted the monster's stamina. The episode ended by briefly showing Saitama's promotion to B-class hero, as well as Mumen Rider later visiting Saitama and inviting him out to eat once his injuries had slightly healed. The final scene showed the two men sitting side by side in a small restaurant, both wearing gentle smiles. Nothing was explained outright. Yet Jun understood perfectly. In this episode, Shyroane-sensei used the story to openly mock those who only dare to act as keyboard warriors online. More importantly, the emotions this episode stirred in Jun were completely different from anything One Punch Man had evoked before. Previously, One Punch Man had been primarily a comedy. But this episode brought tears to his eyes, leaving a lingering emotional weight in his heart. After the ending song played, a large number of anime fans flooded the official website forum. So good, this episode. Mumen Rider really moved me. A true warrior is someone who not only dares to face terrifying enemies, but also dares to face their own weakness. The portrayal of C-Class No. 1, Mumen Rider, was incredible. It only took one episode for him to leave a lasting impression. It has to be Saitama. That punch went straight to the soul. The Deep Sea King didn't just lose, he was completely erased. I thought this was just a comedy action anime, but the Deep Sea King arc genuinely touched me. Keep it up, Shyroane-sensei. Only 9 episodes have aired so far. The final 3 have to be even better than the Deep Sea King arc, right? Vote, vote. Everyone go vote for Shyroane-sensei and One Punch Man. The ending of this episode was truly brilliant. Saitama willingly took the blame, letting the public shift their anger over the fallen heroes onto himself. He doesn't care how others judge him anyway. The irony is overwhelming. They fought with everything they had to protect people, yet once the danger passed, those same people behaved worse than beasts. This is real life. Online keyboard warriors everywhere, acting like geniuses behind their screens. In reality, aside from sharing Saitama's hairstyle, they have nothing in common with him. I loved this episode. Just based on Saitama standing up to the trolls at the end, I'll give this anime a perfect score every single week. Late that night, the discussion sparked by the premiere of One Punch Man Episode 9 was far more intense than in previous weeks. In fact, even in Ari's previous life, this episode had been one of the most discussed chapters of the One Punch Man anime. Whether it was Saitama or Genos, it was difficult for the audience to truly relate to them. The gap between them and ordinary people was simply too large. But Mumen Rider was different. In just a few short minutes, most viewers could see themselves in him. Because most viewers are ordinary people, just like Mumen Rider. Discussion about One Punch Man continued non-stop across the forums throughout the night. Meanwhile, many employees at Illumination Animation Production Company, who had relatively light workloads that day, gathered in the office to wait for the viewership ratings of last night's broadcast. At 10 in the morning, the data report finally arrived. Himari, as the company's chairperson, nervously opened the email. One line immediately seized everyone's attention. One Punch Man Episode 9, premiere rating 4.89%, average rating 5.89%, peak rating 6.12%. Temporarily ranked as the top-rated anime of the season. When this almost unbelievable figure was announced that morning, the news spread rapidly throughout the entire anime industry. How was this possible? One Punch Man had already become the top-rated anime of the season. How could its ratings continue rising even after reaching first place? At this point, it felt like One Punch Man's target was no longer burning sin. Everyone began asking the same question. Chapter 148, Plan and Results. After the 9th episode of One Punch Man aired, the surge in viewership finally made everyone in the Japanese animation industry realize that something was wrong. Under normal circumstances, even the so-called top anime of a season usually hovered just above a 5% viewership rating, rarely exceeding 6%. With so many anime airing simultaneously each season, and multiple TV stations broadcasting similar programs in the same time slots, viewership was naturally dispersed. Because of this, any work capable of breaking the 6% threshold was essentially considered a candidate for Anime of the Year. In fact, no anime in Japan had managed to surpass 6% viewership this year. Whether it was Hikaru no Go or the major titles from the previous 3 seasons, the highest single episode rating had only reached 5.7%. This week, One Punch Man broke that record for the first time. And more importantly, the autumn anime season still had several weeks left. Under these circumstances, roughly 2 months after One Punch Man began airing, the various merchandise manufacturers and partner companies working with REI finally launched the official One Punch Man merchandise that he had previously approved. These products became available across major Japanese online shopping platforms, the Illumination Animation official website, and select physical retail outlets. Of course, although REI established a company during this period to cooperate with multiple merchandise manufacturers under his own name, this model inevitably required sharing profits with partners. This was very different from Hojimori Group. Although Hojimori Group is primarily a comic publisher, it operates a complete one-stop industrial chain that includes printing, sales, merchandise production, and distribution channels. For merchandise sold at the same price, Hojimori Group's profit margins would naturally be higher than REI's. However, REI was not greedy. His involvement in the animation industry stemmed more from personal interest and passion. He wanted to bring outstanding works from his previous life into this world, rather than becoming deeply entangled in commercial operations. Earning slightly less did not matter to him. Moreover, given One Punch Man's current popularity, even without pouring excessive energy into IP operations, REI was already earning far more from this work than he would have if it had been serialized under Hojimori Group's comic journal. As One Punch Man continued to grow in popularity, professionals from both the animation and comic industries across Japan, along with countless fans, all began asking the same question. How was One Punch Man rejected by Hojimori Group back then? This work did not require a slow build-up at all. The plot of the very first episode was already incredibly engaging. I heard teacher Shyroane originally prepared the first 3 chapters of 2 manga manuscripts and intended to submit them together to Hojimori Group's serialization meeting. Unfortunately, the editors rejected the submission outright based on regulations, without even reviewing the content. In the end, teacher Shyroane chose to submit Hunter and personally funded the production of the One Punch Man anime. Given One Punch Man's current popularity, even if Hunter gets an anime adaptation, it probably won't surpass One Punch Man. That's hard to say. Hunter's reputation feels slightly stronger than One Punch Man's. But in terms of commercial value, One Punch Man clearly has greater potential. In Japan, both works are top tier within the anime industry. But overseas, especially in Western markets, One Punch Man's popularity is clearly higher. Overseas? Neither of them has officially opened international broadcast channels yet, right? The foreign language manga volumes of Hunter have already been released abroad, and their sales are quite strong. But they still can't compare to One Punch Man. Foreign audiences seem extremely receptive to heroes and monsters. Even without high-definition broadcasts on overseas TV stations, many viewers are still watching low-quality phone recordings that spread from Japan, and they love it. It has already become the most anticipated Japanese anime among foreign fans, and the number of pre-orders for official One Punch Man Blu-rays on overseas platforms is astonishing. Hey? I thought Hunter would have the advantage between the two. Is One Punch Man actually more famous? Reputation and commercial value are two completely different things. At this stage, teacher Shyragane's most critically acclaimed work is still Hikaru no Go. But even if Hikaru no Go could reach 1/10 of Hunter's commercial value, that would already be impressive. And when it comes to merchandise development, Hunter is clearly inferior to One Punch Man. Just look at it. The Vaccine Man figurine from One Punch Man alone ranks extremely high on user wish lists across major shopping platforms. Meanwhile, for Hunter, aside from the 4 main protagonists and Hisoka, most readers don't feel a strong desire to buy merchandise for the other characters. From the current situation, Hojimori Group probably regrets it bitterly. But the peripheral production and distribution companies that teacher Shyroane found really aren't that capable. Their support for One Punch Man's IP operations is clearly far inferior to what Hojimori Group could provide. So what if One Punch Man's IP grows bigger? Most of the money would still be earned by Hojimori Group, while teacher Shyroane would only receive a pitiful royalty share. As things stand now, One Punch Man may not be able to rapidly expand its IP value through Hojimori Group's channels, but at least teacher Shyroane is earning several times more. To put it bluntly, submitting a work to a manga group means using their journal channels to gain fame quickly. But if a self-produced work can become as popular as One Punch Man, who would be foolish enough to hand over the copyright and split the profits with a manga company? On the internet, Shyragane's fans happily indulged in gossip. Meanwhile, professionals within the anime industry quietly observed the situation. As for REI and Hojimori Group, everyone tacitly avoided mentioning the issue in direct communication. After all, their collaborative work was Hunter. As for One Punch Man, the die had already been cast. No matter how unpleasant it was, Hojimori Group's executives could only swallow the result. What they did see, however, was that One Punch Man merchandise sold out within 3 days of going online. Fans flocked to offline stores every day to inquire about restocks, driving shop owners nearly frantic. Yet suppliers had no inventory available. Large numbers of fans swarmed REI's creator account like nagging spouses, accusing him of artificial scarcity. They demanded that he stop playing hunger marketing tactics. If he just wanted to raise prices, he should say so openly. They would pay whatever it cost. This left REI both amused and helpless. How could he possibly be engaging in hunger marketing? The truth was that the cooperating merchandise companies had initially underestimated One Punch Man's potential. As a result, the production capacity allocated in the early stages was far too limited. Now that they fully understood the market demand, they were rushing to expand production. However, manufacturing, shipping, and channel distribution all required time. Japan is vast with dense offline retail networks. It was simply impossible to complete nationwide distribution in just a few days. Still, One Punch Man's explosive popularity put REI somewhat at ease. In fact, in REI's previous life, the IP value of One Punch Man had been higher than Hunter's. This might be debatable within East Asia, but in Western markets, One Punch Man's popularity clearly surpassed Hunter's, and the same was true for merchandise sales. The situation after both works were recreated in Japan followed a similar pattern. If I ever make another self-produced animation in the future, I'll need to cooperate directly with a few top-tier Japanese companies, REI muttered after some thought. It wasn't that he had never considered doing everything himself. But after careful consideration, he simply didn't have the energy. Even setting aside other issues, if he were to establish a merchandise company from scratch, handling production, sales, and nationwide distribution across dozens of provinces, it would take far more than a few months or even a year or two, no matter how much money he threw at it. Moreover, if a single creator monopolized both upstream and downstream profits from a massively popular IP, the inevitable result would be collective resistance from peers across the entire industry chain. There was no need to invite that kind of trouble. By mid-December, the second volume of the Hunter manga was officially released. Although the relationship between REI and Hojimori Group had become somewhat delicate due to One Punch Man and Hunter existing simultaneously, fans did not care about such subtleties. They had no reservations about mocking capital groups like Hojimori Group. But when it came time to spend money, they did not hesitate in the slightest. Many Hunter fans were drawn into One Punch Man because of Hunter. Likewise, many One Punch Man fans began exploring REI's earlier works such as 5 cm per second, Tonight, Hikaru no Go, and Hunter because of the anime. Driven by the cumulative popularity of REI's works, the single volume sales of 5 cm per second surpassed 6 million copies. And then, the first week sales numbers for the second volume of Hunter shocked the entire manga industry. 5.86 million copies. After all, this ranked as the 4th highest first-week sales figure among all manga volumes released in Japan that year. Chapter 149, Year-End and Expectations. In the Japanese market, a vast number of regional and national manga magazines are serialized simultaneously. Every year, an equally massive number of manga single volumes are released. Because of this sheer volume of works, the Japanese manga industry naturally has many professional statistical agencies responsible for compiling rankings and sales data. Among them, the most popular destination for fans is the anime rating and data website Opinion Hub. After all, in addition to fan ratings, nearly all sales data for manga volumes, anime discs, Blu-rays, and figures can be found on this platform. This year's total annual sales chart for manga single volumes in Japan has little relevance to Hunter. A manga that began serialization in June and only released its first volumes near the end of the year naturally cannot appear on the annual total sales ranking. Similarly, the per-volume cumulative sales chart for serialized manga does not include works whose volumes have only recently been released. The only ranking where new manga like Hunter can appear is the first-week sales chart for manga single volumes. At first glance, Hunter's second volume ranking fourth in first-week sales might not seem particularly remarkable. But in reality, the situation is completely different. Among the top 30 best-selling titles on that chart, which one is not a popular manga that has been serialized continuously for several years? Take Source War Chronicle as an example. It released 5 single volumes this year, yet only 3 of them managed to enter the top 30 on the chart. Across the entire top 30, the leading works from different manga magazines are largely familiar and stable. There is only one exception. That exception is Echoes of the End, the number 1 ranked manga on Monogatari Comic. It released 6 single volumes this year and occupied 4 of the top 10 positions on the chart. Before the release of Hunter's second volume, Echoes of the End happened to hold the first through fourth places in first-week sales among all manga single volumes released in Japan this year. Then Hunter's second volume posted first-week sales of 5.86 million copies, pushing the volume of Echoes of the End down to 5th place. That 5th place ranking was glaring. It drove the more obsessive fans of Echoes of the End nearly insane, and it also caught the attention of media outlets that had recently been focused almost entirely on One Punch Man. Just the second volume, and it already achieved first-week sales exceeding 5.8 million copies? If this manga continues its serialization long-term, it feels entirely possible that its per-volume sales could eventually surpass 16 million copies. At this point, many people began to feel that something was off about Shyroane. One Punch Man had already become the viewership champion of the Japanese animation industry this quarter. So how had Hunter quietly begun gaining momentum at the end of the year without anyone noticing? The most amusing part was this. Shyragane's original animation One Punch Man had climbed to the top by stepping directly on Burning Sin, the second-ranked manga on Monogatari Comic. And now Hunter's manga sales data looked strangely familiar. Although the two works belonged to different magazines, Shyroane had first overtaken Burning Sin in the animation field and delivered it a heavy blow. Now, he appeared to be launching a frontal assault on Echoes of the End in the manga market as well. Having learned from previous experience, the Monogatari group reacted swiftly. They immediately initiated a full network promotional campaign for Echoes of the End. Manga single-volume releases are usually slow-paced, but Shyroane was a true tentacle monster, releasing one volume almost every month. He might not be able to lead Dream Comic into directly challenging Monogatari Comic's position as the top magazine. However, if his work truly surpassed Echoes of the End in annual total sales and single-volume weekly sales, the situation would become extremely serious. The title of Japan's most popular manga held by Echoes of the End would be questioned, and even the stock price of the Monogatari group could experience fluctuations. Naturally, Hojimori Group would not miss such an opportunity. They also increased promotional efforts for the Hunter manga. After all, competition between magazines was a separate matter. But since Hunter has a chance to compete with Echoes of the End, there was no reason for Hojimori Group to back down. Losing would mean no real loss, while winning would bring enormous gains, so they naturally chose to support it with full force. As a result, December became an unusually lively month for the Japanese manga market. As for the anime market, the first season of One Punch Man finally delivered an episode that would be unforgettable for anime fans across Japan. The absolute ceiling of all monsters in the entire series appeared at last. A being with genuine world-destroying power. The cosmic overlord, Boros. In this arc, many S-class heroes of the Hero Association also appeared together for the first time. Among them was King, the character with the second highest meme presence in One Punch Man, known as the strongest man on Earth. He made his first public appearance in episode 11. With his overwhelming presence and the terrifying sound of his Emperor engine, King immediately captured the audience's attention and became the focus of discussion. At the same time, the Hero Association's internal meeting finally revealed more than just names. Heroes such as Tank Top Master, Atomic Samurai, Super Alloy Darkshine, and the S-Class Rank 2 Hero Tornado all made their formal appearances. Previously, one of the biggest mysteries that kept viewers invested was the true lineup of the S-Class heroes. Especially Blast, the S-Class Rank 1 hero who had been endlessly hyped within the story. Could Blast withstand a second punch from Saitama? This question had been circulating among fans for weeks. Now, a new question emerged. If King were to fight Saitama, could this so-called strongest man on Earth survive even a single punch? All of these questions were partially answered in episode 11 of One Punch Man. As Saitama casually wandered through Boros' spaceship, he eventually reached the main control room and encountered Boros himself. Boros had spent decades traveling the universe, coming to Earth because of a prophecy that foretold the existence of someone capable of fighting him. As it turned out, that prophecy was correct. At least 2 people on Earth could truly fight Boros. One was Blast, the S-class rank 1 hero who had never appeared in the original manga. Although he did appear later in Murata's revised manga version, that portrayal dissatisfied many fans. The other was Garu, who had not yet fully grown but would undergo explosive evolution in later arcs. Unfortunately for Boros, he encountered neither of them. Instead, he met the Caped Baldy. Saitama. The only person on Earth he could not defeat. Episode 11 ended with Saitama and Boros meeting aboard the spaceship, where an impatient Saitama casually punched Boros away. But this time, Boros did not die. He was merely sent flying. This single scene, combined with the build-up surrounding the Hero Association, pushed the anime's popularity to new heights after episode 11 aired. That Friday night, countless One Punch Man fans found themselves unable to sleep. For the first time in the entire series, a monster had appeared who could withstand one punch from Saitama and survive. Did this mean Saitama's character setting was finally breaking? Moreover, since the start of the Boros arc in episode 10, viewers could clearly feel a significant improvement in production quality. Whether it was ordinary monsters or the various S-class heroes, every character was given a distinct and memorable portrayal. The episode concluded with an atmosphere thick with impending chaos. Audience anticipation and satisfaction reached their highest point since the anime's premiere. That said, criticism still had to be voiced. Shyroane, would it really kill you not to end every episode on a cliffhanger? Whether it was manga or anime, these weekly cliffhangers always left viewers restless for an entire week, making 7 days feel like a whole year. Chapter 150, Expectation. In December, with only a few days remaining before the end of the first season of One Punch Man, REI's workload reached its peak. The popularity of One Punch Man had reached an almost unbelievable level. Merchants and partners from all over Japan came knocking one after another, and REI had to meet them individually. For a massively popular animation like One Punch Man, adapting it into a manga and a novel was an unavoidable step. Animation, novels, and manga are 3 interconnected formats, and once a work becomes extremely popular, it will inevitably expand into the other 2. REI knew very well that he did not have the energy to draw another manga himself, so he began looking for suitable ghost artists. Game adaptations were also essential for One Punch Man, but REI was currently a complete novice in the field of game development. Several game companies took the initiative to approach him, hoping to jointly develop a One Punch Man game. REI was already negotiating with them regarding these proposals. If a truly reliable company capable of producing a high-quality game emerged, he would simply grant authorization and collect royalties based on sales revenue. Although REI had not been in the manga industry for many years, he was even more inexperienced when it came to the animation and gaming industries. Even so, this did not affect the orderly progress of the One Punch Man IP expansion. Once the popularity of the animation was firmly established, it was only a matter of time before adaptations in other directions began to bear fruit. The world is inherently makeshift. Everyone learns while moving forward. It does not matter if the first attempt lacks experience or perfection. There will always be opportunities to improve next time. However, unlike REI's relaxed attitude, many large, medium, and small companies in Japan's animation industry were quietly watching how he handled the IP operations and adaptations of One Punch Man. If a company had a massive hit like One Punch Man under its banner, would it not immediately draft 5-year or 10-year plans and calculate in detail how to maximize profits? REI had no such thoughts. 5-year and 10-year plans were meaningless to him. 5 or 10 years was enough time for Dragon Ball to go from serialization to completion. Where would he find the patience for that? As a result, at the end of the month, the official announcement was made that the second season of One Punch Man would continue airing in January. The release date for the anime Blu-ray discs was also set for early January. A flood of news related to One Punch Man followed, completely overwhelming Shyragane's fans. Time soon reached the end of December, Friday, the day the 12th episode of One Punch Man premiered. Shyragane-sensei is really incredible. The second season of One Punch Man starts immediately in January, and it's even moving to a prime time slot at 8 o'clock. Shyroane-sensei is suffering from being too young. The greatest value of a work lies in never ending it. As long as it continues, fans will keep thinking about it. That's why so many manga whose main story has already concluded still insist on sequels featuring the protagonist's child or a supporting character. Shyroane-sensei should plan 3 to 5 seasons of One Punch Man and stretch it over 10 years. Just relying on this series, he could easily earn 9 figures. A person's energy is limited. How many 10-year periods does one person really have? Shyroane-sensei has only been publishing manga for about 3 years in total. Either way, I'm thrilled. We'll have amazing works to watch again next season. Thank you, Shyroane-sensei. The Hikaru no Go anime made me cry in the first half of the year, and One Punch Man kept me laughing all the way through the second half. Alright, tonight is the finale of the first season of One Punch Man. I hope Shyroane-sensei doesn't disappoint us. Boros has been built up for so many weeks. Please let Saitama have some fun. Honestly, Boros feels like a tragic clown. He thought he was invincible, came all the way to Earth, and immediately ran into Saitama. You're all arguing about how many punches it'll take Saitama to kill Boros, but is there any chance Boros could kill Saitama? That's impossible. Even a child knows that kind of ending would destroy the character setup. Shyroane-sensei isn't stupid. At 9 o'clock in the evening, Genji's fingers tapped rapidly across the keyboard. For an anime as popular as One Punch Man, fans discussed the plot passionately every day, and the memes from the series had long been exhausted. Every week, Genji only needed 20 minutes to watch the One Punch Man episode. But he spent more than 10 hours browsing the One Punch Man discussion forums, arguing non-stop with people from every camp. After angrily typing another several hundred-word post tearing apart a group of paid trolls who were mindlessly bashing the show, Genji finally leaned back and stretched. Glancing at the time, Genji waited for his scheduled late-night takeout. 3 minutes before 9:30, the delivery arrived. He took out the drinks he had been chilling in the refrigerator, along with the equally cold cups, and unwrapped his food. At that moment, the capital TV station broadcast paused on the living room television. The frozen frame showed a bald man in a yellow suit. Genji was already smiling. The opening sequence of the final episode of One Punch Man was completely different from the previous 11 episodes. Not only did every important character from earlier episodes appear, but the sequence deliberately lingered on Boros, the dominator of the universe, at the very end. Seriously, they're not going to spend the entire episode fighting Boros, are they? Genji muttered as he picked up a skewer. But soon, his body stiffened as the anime began in earnest. During the early production stage of the 12th episode, everyone at Illumination Animation Production Company had already understood one thing very clearly. This anime was guaranteed to explode in popularity. After receiving approval from the investor, REI, additional funding was injected into the project. For this episode, the key animation directors and original draft artists were personally recruited by Himari and Illumination Animation's upper management from among many well-known figures in the industry. Someone like Genji, who had watched anime for many years, could tell the difference in quality within just a few seconds. The 12th episode of One Punch Man picked up directly from where the previous episode had ended. After Boros finished explaining his reason for coming to Earth, Genji finally understood. Boros had come in search of an opponent. If he failed to find one, destroying Earth would simply be a secondary objective. Alright. Cool design, cool presence. But at that moment, Boros had already chosen the path to his own destruction. The next scene showed Boros activating his power and launching a super high-speed assault straight at Saitama. Saitama's speed was equally astonishing, yet the relaxed expression on his face made it look as though he were merely taking a casual walk. The two exchanged blows inside spaceship, a structure larger than an entire city. Genji's eyes widened. After watching Saitama casually annihilate dragon-level and demon-level monsters with a single punch in previous episodes, seeing Boros endure dozens of punches and even fight Saitama to a standstill, if only briefly. Awesome, Boros! Genji shouted, laughing with the skewer still in his hand. But as soon as the words left his mouth, he froze. What he was hoping for was clear. He wanted Boros to make Saitama struggle, even just a little. Without realizing it, Genji had begun to empathize with Boros. These monsters were simply too miserable. Couldn't even one of them make Saitama look less effortless? Just once, give him some pressure. Chapter 151, The Finale. You're strong, Saitama said calmly. To be able to fight me, after I've unleashed my full power, and still hold a stalemate. Boros laughed. Outside the spaceship, members of the Hero Association were fighting the remaining monsters aboard the vessel. Inside the spaceship, however, the battle between Saitama and Boros remained unseen by anyone else. Yet throughout the entire episode, the flames, special effects, art style, combat choreography, and background detail. Genji could clearly feel that none of it was inferior to many animated films released in theaters. What's more, the fight was extraordinarily long and immensely satisfying to watch. When the battle shifted from inside the spaceship to its outer surface. When Boros unleashed his full power, shattering city-sized structures on the ship's exterior with a single punch. Genji's thoughts stopped entirely. His eyes simply followed the animation, immersed in the visual spectacle and the unfolding story of this One Punch Man episode. Then came the most iconic scene of the episode. Unable to defeat Saitama even then, Boros removed the final seals on his body. Another extended battle followed, lasting over a minute. This time, the clash ended with Saitama being blasted straight off Earth, crashing onto the moon. Saitama lightly pushed off the moon's surface, returning to Earth. Back to the spaceship. Back to Boros. When Boros's wide, stunned eyes appeared on screen, Genji couldn't hold back. You've never met someone like Saitama before, have you? You will be defeated by me. Boros roared, unleashing every last ounce of his power. Saitama responded with a single punch. This time, however, there was a faint seriousness in his eyes. Boros's body was blown apart. Then, from a single drop of blood, Boros regenerated once more and charged forward, his face filled with fury and resolve. Genji picked up his glass of water and took a nervous sip. The background music was overwhelming. His heart was already shouting. Go, Boros! But after 2 minutes of what Genji considered the coolest fight scene he had seen this year, no, in the last 5 years. Collapsing star roaring cannon. Serious punch. Their voices overlapped. Under the force of Saitama's serious punch, Boros lost all remaining vitality. Regeneration was no longer possible. The shockwave split the clouds of Earth apart, carving a visible path through the sky. You really were strong, Saitama said, looking back at Boros, who lay on the ground with only a faint breath remaining. As the prophecy foretold, this was an equal battle. Yet. It was, Saitama replied, turning his back. Genji felt a sudden ache in his chest. Even though Boros was a villain, he couldn't help but feel sympathy. You're lying, Boros said weakly. You still had strength left. This doesn't even count as a real fight. You're just too strong. Boros died. The massive spaceship began to fall from the sky. As Saitama's solitary figure turned and walked away, a line of text appeared on the screen. The strongest hero. It was both the official confirmation of Saitama's power and the title of the episode. Without realizing it, Genji's eyes grew moist. To ordinary people, Boros was a godlike existence. But compared to Saitama, the gap between them was even greater than that between a god and a human. Empathizing with Boros, Genji felt an unexpected sadness. One Punch Man episode 12 ended as the ending theme played, showing scenes of captured aliens and brief appearances of various key characters. Is it really over? Genji murmured. Not just the episode. But Boros as well. For reasons he couldn't explain, One Punch Man always made him want to cry without realizing it. After the ending song finished, Genji closed his eyes and replayed the episode in his mind again and again. Amazing, Teacher Shyroane. Both the story and the production were top tier. And the title of the final episode, The Strongest Hero, perfectly captured its theme, the strongest hero defeating the strongest monster. Until Boros was defeated and Saitama quietly left, human society knew nothing about what had truly happened. The civilians below the spaceship, and even the heroes themselves, were completely unaware. One person had not only saved the city's residents, but had also saved the entire world, heroes included. Of course, the most important thing was that the fight scenes were genuinely breathtaking. In fact, the epic battle between Saitama and Boros sparked an enormous amount of discussion that very night. Boros is just gone like that? Can Teacher Shyroane revive him later? It made me tear up. Episode 12 is simply divine. That continuous battle sequence is absolutely the most iconic animated scene of this year. Incredible. I'm speechless. The production quality of this episode is basically the ceiling for television animation. This is torture. I have to wait another week for One Punch Man Season 2. What am I supposed to watch next week? Don't tell me Burning Sin Episode 13. It's over. Confetti time. It's not over yet, why are you throwing confetti? Celebrating the end of Season 1. Friday night, 10 o'clock. Large numbers of fans flooded the forums to discuss the final episode of One Punch Man. As the finale of the most popular anime of the season, Episode 12 was under intense scrutiny. The result was a complete triumph. Those who had been waiting for One Punch Man to stumble, who had even prepared negative drafts in advance, hoping to seize on the slightest flaw the moment the episode aired, vanished without a trace. At this point, the entire Japanese animation industry was focused on one question. What would the ratings for One Punch Man Episode 12 be? Would they match last week? Would they fall? Or would everyone's boldest expectation come true and break the 6% mark? The next morning, Rei woke early and headed straight to Illumination Animation Company. Himura had arrived even earlier and was already waiting in the chairman's office. "You're early, Rei," she greeted him with a smile. "So are you. We were both too eager to know the ratings to sleep, weren't we?" Himura laughed, taking a deep breath. Rei didn't answer, his eyes fixed on the clock. "By the way," Himura asked, "if One Punch Man really breaks 6%, what do you plan to do? If it really breaks 6%? Rei paused, then smiled. "That would only mean the pressure on Season 2 will be even greater. It'll be very difficult to surpass this record again." "But..." He looked at her calmly, "I think both you and I are the type who enjoy challenging difficult things." Minute by minute, time passed. Finally, at 10 o'clock sharp, a document from Capital TV station arrived in Himura's inbox. She opened it. Her expression froze for a moment, then slowly relaxed as she spoke. One Punch Man Episode 12. Ratings, 6.18%. Winning by a margin of 0.02%, and breaking the highest animation ratings record in Japan over the past 5 years. Chapter 152, Outlook. During the final week of the first season's broadcast, One Punch Man delivered a highly satisfactory report card to the market. Although it was only the final episode, a viewership rating exceeding 6% spoke for itself. You could argue that One Punch Man is merely a power fantasy work lacking depth, but the audience proved otherwise through their actions. Not only did they continue watching in massive numbers, they also gave the anime exceptionally high scores after it aired. When Hikaru no Go premiered in the first half of the year, many media outlets commented that while the work was popular, its commercial value was limited. They believed it was unrealistic for Rei to rely on Hikaru no Go alone to secure a high status within the industry. But now, with One Punch Man achieving such explosive success, who could still find fault? Naturally, the day after One Punch Man broke the 6% ratings mark, the Hojimori Group broke from its usual routine. On a Saturday, it summoned a group of mid-level and senior editors, along with several high-ranking operations executives, for a closed-door reprimand meeting. Misaki also attended, but she faced little criticism. According to internal records, both she and editor-in-chief Han had been strong advocates for allowing Rei to serialize 2 works simultaneously. The decision had ultimately been vetoed by even higher management. As a result, they were only lightly implicated. Under normal circumstances, missing an opportunity would simply be chalked up as bad luck. Given the scale of the Hojimori Group, there would have been no need for such agitation. However, the performance of the One Punch Man anime truly caused the senior executives to lose their composure. Watching Rei use the One Punch Man IP to collaborate with second- and third-tier mobile games and various minor brands made them feel as though they were witnessing a prodigal son at work. How could such a massive IP be partnered so casually? In their view, an anime of this caliber should have delayed its second season for 3 to 5 years, waiting until the initial hype began to fade before launching Season 2, followed by Seasons 3 and 4. Instead, the first season ended in December, and the second season was scheduled to air in January. What kind of business sense was that? What made the Hojimori Group executives most uncomfortable was this reality. Originally, One Punch Man should have been the flagship manga of Dream Comic. Serialized alongside Hunter, the two could have become twin pillar works. Leveraging Rei's popularity over the course of 1 or 2 years, the group might have pushed Dream Comic past 20 million copies in weekly sales, surpassing Koken and becoming the undisputed third largest manga magazine in Japan. Instead, the more popular One Punch Man became, the more foolish the Hojimori group appeared. Yet regardless of their regrets, following the massive success of Hikaru no Go, Hunter, and One Punch Man, Rei, this 18-year-old freshman manga artist and anime screenwriter, had officially entered the top tier of Japan's animation and manga industry. If asked whether there were local creators whose achievements rivaled Rei's, the answer would certainly be yes. But those individuals were veterans in their 40s or 50s. How could their future potential possibly compare to that of an 18-year-old? All right, it's finally over. Rei typed a message across his creator accounts on multiple platforms, celebrating the conclusion of One Punch Man Season 1 and reminding fans to tune in for Season 2 in January. In less than 20 minutes, the post received tens of thousands of comments and over 100,000 shares. Keep going, Teacher Shyroane. I'll definitely watch the second season. Just remember to work with the 5 major manufacturers next time you choose merchandise partners. The quality is fine now, but the distribution is terrible. My city is only 3rd tier, but surely they can stock it here, right? How can Season 2 possibly top Boros? Will there really be a monster with an even stronger sense of oppression? Teacher Shyroane, please don't let it collapse. Teacher Shyroane can come up with stories like this at 18. When I was 18 and learning to draw, even my elementary school brother laughed at my work. The gap between people is terrifying. I think there's a problem with the ranking system. King, the strongest man on Earth, is only ranked 7th. We won't even talk about Tornado since she's a woman, but why are Bang and Atomic Samurai ranked above King? I hope Teacher Shyroane explains this next season. Keep up the great work, Teacher Shyroane. I watched this anime with my 6-year-old son. We both loved it. Truly excellent works should be enjoyable for everyone, regardless of gender or age. A rating above 6% is incredible. I hope Teacher Shyroane can maintain this level in the second season. The first season only reached it in the final episode. The second season should hold it from start to finish. Looking at the overwhelming stream of supportive comments in his account backend, Rei felt a strong sense of accomplishment. Even though he was not the original creator, the satisfaction was real. In his previous life, there had been countless examples of excellent source material being ruined by terrible adaptations. At the very least, in this Japan, Rei could confidently say that none of the works he had adapted had turned into disasters. Every single one had been met with enthusiastic praise. Judging by the current popularity of One Punch Man Season 1, Rei's investment was likely to return at least 10 times the cost, possibly even several dozen times over. Moreover, the current plot of One Punch Man had not yet reached the most exciting portions of the original work. Although the characterization of Garu during the Garu arc had once felt somewhat strange to Rei, the development of the supporting cast in that arc was pushed to its absolute peak. A large number of Hero Association members would also take action together, producing countless iconic scenes and legendary memes from the original work. All of this would be fully presented in the second and third seasons of the One Punch Man anime. And it wasn't just One Punch Man. Over the past 2 weeks, the plot of Hunter had also begun entering its true main storyline, the Heaven's Arena arc. The most fascinating setting of the original work, non-ability, was finally revealed to readers. To be honest, when Rei had first read Hunter in his previous life, he had once suspected that Yoshihiro Togashi only had a rough outline in mind, relying heavily on inspiration and talent to fill in the gaps as he went. Otherwise, it would be almost impossible to explain how a manga could introduce its core combat system only after a full year of serialization. That would be like drawing Bleach for a year before introducing Shinigami, Naruto for a year before introducing ninjutsu, or One Piece for a year before Devil Fruits appeared. Yet Hunter did exactly that, and it went on to remain popular for over 20 years. Naturally, after the non-ability system was introduced, some readers expressed dissatisfaction. They had grown accustomed to the earlier, low-powered martial arts style and worried that the sudden introduction of a complex combat system might cause the story to collapse. The concern wasn't limited to readers. Editors at the Hojimori group shared similar worries. Many of them had Misaki subtly advise Rei to slow down the plot, emphasizing that stability was the safest approach. All of this information churned in Rei's mind. He glanced at the date on his phone. December 25. It had been roughly 2.5 years since he had transmigrated into this world. At present, both of the works he was serializing stood at critical turning points in their original timelines. And yet, their current achievements were still far from their true peak. Next year would be the real explosion period. Both works were only just beginning to show their full potential. Chapter 153, New Year and News. On the last Wednesday of December, the cover of Dream Comic Journal was exclusively dominated by the protagonist of Hunter, Gon, and the popular supporting character, Hisoka. The plot of this chapter concluded with Gon and Killua learning the basic application of Nin ability in just one day at Heaven's Arena. Within the time limit, they successfully blocked Hisoka's Nin and advanced to the restricted upper floors of the arena tower. It was precisely the exhilaration of this week's Hunter storyline, far surpassing the earlier arc in which Gon struggled against the Zaldiq family, that allowed the manga to surpass 1 million fan votes on Dream Comic for the first time, just 5 months after serialization began. This achievement made Hunter the fifth currently serialized manga across all journals in Japan to reach such a milestone. Meanwhile, although only 2 months had passed since the release of Hunter's first and second volumes, Volume 1 had already sold 10.65 million copies, while Volume 2 exceeded 8 million copies and was rapidly approaching the 10 million mark. The series was clearly on track to average nearly 10 million copies per volume. As a result, at the Hojimori Group's annual gala on December 31, REI appeared as one of the headline figures, attending alongside the group's contracted manga artists and its middle and senior management. Naturally, Mayu, whose manga was serialized in Dream Comic, also attended the New Year's Eve gala with REI. However, Mayu was, in truth, a complete nobody at this year's event. Although her new manga had begun trending upward after serialization, the pace was painfully slow. After more than a month, its popularity ranking still hovered around 15th place. In Dream Comic, the bottom 3 ranked works are always at risk of cancellation, meaning that sitting only 5 places above the cutoff placed enormous pressure on her. That said, the visibly close relationship she displayed with REI at the gala, combined with their shared past as high school classmates and university alumni, caught the attention of many members of Hojimori Group's management. On top of that, Mayu repeatedly addressing Misaki as sister exposed their sisterly relationship, causing gossip about the trio, Mayu, Misaki, and REI, to spread rapidly within the company. No wonder a talent like Shyroane had been discovered by Misaki, an editor who had graduated only 5 years earlier. After all, the 2 most prominent new manga artists at Hojimori Group, Shyroane and Saki, had deep personal connections to her. One was her sister, and the other was rumored to share an unusually close relationship with that sister. "This is what people mean by a protagonist's life," Mayu said on the ride home, her expression a mix of admiration and quiet melancholy. "One of the reasons I wanted to become a manga artist was the hope that one day, I could earn the same level of respect in the industry as you have, REI. Maybe next year," REI replied with a faint smile. "If you work hard and raise your ranking to 2nd place, you might receive the same treatment." "Let's not give motivational speeches just yet," Misaki said from the driver's seat. "If Touch of Glass can stabilize within the top 12 next year and qualify for animation, that will already be a major success. Right now, 9 of the top 10 serialized works in the journal have anime adaptations. 4 of them, unfortunately, performed poorly and failed to attract new readers, instead drawing criticism from longtime fans. The Hunter anime is also scheduled to air next year, Mayu. If you push hard during this period, maybe by the end of next year, or the year after, you'll see your own manga adapted." "An anime adaptation?" Mayu's eyes lit up. "Just wait, REI. Once Touch of Glass gets animated, its popularity might explode, beating Hunter and kicking One Punch Man aside." REI looked at her with a complicated expression. After witnessing the achievements of Hunter and One Punch Man, most people would have set far more modest goals. "Strictly speaking," REI said with a chuckle, "that possibility applies equally to Hunter and One Punch Man. Hunter is already number 1 in the journal, how much higher can it go? And One Punch Man already dominates viewership. What more is there to achieve?" Mayu said confidently. "Both of your works have reached their absolute peak. From here on, they can only decline." "That's not necessarily true," REI replied calmly. "One Punch Man has only broken the animation viewership record of the past 5 years. Hunter is merely number 1 within Hojimori Group. It's still far from being number 1 across the entire Japan when you consider average volume sales, critical reputation, and global IP influence." The car fell silent. Compared to REI's casual statements, Mayu, even the arrogant remarks you only make when you're feeling cocky sound far too modest, Misaki exclaimed. But the other 2 people in the car no longer doubted REI. If it were anyone else, they would have questioned him first and mocked him immediately. But when it came to Rei, you believed him first and asked questions later. After all, what if he really succeeded? December ended, and January arrived. The first 3 days of the new year were national holidays. Because New Year's Day fell on a weekend, and One Punch Man was scheduled to air on Fridays, the second season of One Punch Man did not premiere during the holiday period. Among the anime airing on Saturday and Sunday, the most notable was the fourth season of Hikaru no Go, its final season. The anime had run for an entire year, with a mid-series break to give the production team enough time to properly complete the final arc of Hikaru no Go. However, despite being a strong contender for the best anime of the season, the final season of Hikaru no Go would likely have to settle for second place this quarter, falling behind One Punch Man Season 2. Even so, news related to Shyroane across the Japan's animation market was far from over. Just last year, the copyrights to 5 cm per second and Tonight were bundled together and purchased from Hojimori Group by a film company for a price exceeding 10 million. Both works were classic painful youth stories, with relatively low filming difficulty and modest budgets. After more than half a year spent on approvals, casting, filming, and post-production, both movies were essentially complete. Taking advantage of Rei's current momentum as the original author, the production company began large-scale promotional campaigns for their release. The live-action adaptation of 5 cm per second was scheduled for February 14, Valentine's Day. As for the live-action film of Tonight, it was set to premiere on August 26. The choice of release date for 5cm/SEC made fans burst out laughing. Watching 5 cm per second on Valentine's Day? Absolute genius. But on second thought, box office data over the past 2 years showed that painful youth films performed exceptionally well. Perhaps couples actually enjoyed watching stories like these on romantic holidays. It could only be said that ever since Rei rose to fame with Hikaru no Go, a large amount of capital had begun orbiting around him, whether he noticed it or not. During the New Year holiday, Rei also fulfilled his contractual obligations and actively promoted the live-action films for 5 cm per second and Tonight online. A few days passed quickly. Friday, January 7th arrived. Starting from the morning, news related to the premiere of One Punch Man Season 2 at 8 p.m. that night never dropped out of the top 10 trending topics on major websites and search platforms across Japan. As for the major online forums, fans of One Punch Man became highly active starting at 7 o'clock in the evening, their enthusiasm unmatched. Of course, a few anti-fans also appeared, deliberately stirring trouble and spreading rumors that the plot of Season 2 would collapse and that Shyroane would finally be exposed. But almost no one paid attention to those foolish remarks. Instead, what most people were thinking was simple. What would happen in the second season of One Punch Man? Would it maintain the reputation of the first season? Or would it surpass it? Would it elevate One Punch Man from a wildly popular anime into a true phenomenon? Chapter 154, Contrast. The first Friday of January arrived, the day One Punch Man Season 2 premiered. Although it was merely a reunion with fans after a 2-week hiatus, it was clear that Capital TV station was taking this season extremely seriously. Generally speaking, television variety shows, dramas, animation series, and films all have their respective broadcast slots after they finish production. However, among them, TV dramas usually achieve slightly higher ratings than the other three. After all, their target audience includes nearly all citizens of Japan. Yet in the previous quarter, Capital TV station's highest-rated program was One Punch Man. Television stations are straightforward in their logic. Since this work had already proven its strength, the second season of One Punch Man was directly scheduled into the prime time slot, with promotional efforts pushed to the maximum. 7 days a week, during almost every commercial break, Capital TV station aired promotional spots for the premiere of One Punch Man Season 2. Furthermore, the advertising slots before, during, and after the premiere were sold at extraordinarily high prices. What made the situation even more awkward was that Hojimori Group's operations department had also spent a massive amount on advertising this quarter, specifically placing ads during the broadcast of One Punch Man. At present, the weekly sales gap between Dream Comic and Koken Manga was only around 700,000 to 800,000 copies. Under normal circumstances, Dream Comic did not need heavy advertising, but at a critical moment like this, promotion was unavoidable. Naturally, Koken Manga was doing the same. As a result, the groups behind these two major manga magazines became the largest television advertisers for the premiere of One Punch Man Season 2. This series of actions only caused the Hojimori group to become the subject of even more ridicule within the industry. Japan's manga industry had never lacked stories where famous manga artists were rejected when they were unknown, only to submit their works elsewhere and achieve massive success. However, Rei's case was something else entirely. He was a top-tier artist under his own magazine, an extreme workaholic with high-quality output, rapid updates, no scandals, no drama, good looks, and an outstanding reputation among fans. Yet when he requested to serialize 2 mangas simultaneously, he was rejected. Afterward, he self-funded an anime adaptation that went on to become the most popular anime of the year. The most ironic part was that his original company was now spending huge sums of money to advertise its magazines during the premiere of that very anime. Although there were no public rumors of conflict between Hojimori Group and Shyroane, many people who had long been exploited by companies could not help but feel a sense of satisfaction watching this unfold. Hojimori Group, seriously, this will be an industry joke for 10 years. If One Punch Man had been serialized in Dream Comic back then, the magazine's weekly sales would have broken 20 million already, and they could have saved tens of millions in advertising fees. The senior executives must regret it deeply now. They're just pretending not to care. By the way, did you see the photos circulating online from Hojimori Group's annual meeting last week? Teacher Shyroane attended. I don't care about that. One Punch Man Season 2 airs in 20 minutes. That's all I'm interested in. No, listen. In those photos, Teacher Shyroane was standing next to 2 incredibly beautiful girls. Hey! What's going on? Is Teacher Shyroane in a relationship? No, that won't do. Dating would affect his hand speed. If Hunter x Hunter drops from 40 pages a week to 20, that would be disastrous. No, what you said sounds weird, but I can't actually refute it. It's just a rumor online. One of the girls is his manga editor, Misaki. The other is Misaki's younger sister, Mayu. Oh? And then? Mayu was Teacher Shyragane's high school classmate. They're now attending the same university. Hey! No, Teacher Shyroane, don't date. Someone hurry up and win over Mayu so Shyroane can die alone. What are you even talking about? Haven't you wondered why Mayu was at the Hojimori Group annual meeting at all? The rumor is that she's the author of the manga Touch of Glass serialized in Dream Comic. Saki. Hey. Saki? Teacher Shyragane's close friend in the manga industry. I remember when Teacher Shyroane debuted 2 years ago, he admitted that his good friend was Saki. Back then, Saki was pretending to be a female manga artist, and we all thought they were just best friends. Damn, how was this hidden so well? That tiny high school produced 2 of Japan's most talented young manga artists. Can Saki really be compared to Shyroane and be called a genius? An 18-year-old girl whose work is already serialized in Dream Comic, if that's not a genius, what is? Looking at all the shonen manga artists in Japan, aside from Teacher Shyroane, who is simply abnormal, Saki has the strongest achievements by far. Looking back at the history of manga industry, her accomplishments at this age are already among the very top. Who exactly are you looking down on? Even someone like Saki has been earning tens of millions every year for 2 consecutive years. Late at night, before a group of One Punch Man fans even finished waiting for the anime update, explosive information had already begun spreading everywhere. Rei's high school classmates and teachers were completely stunned. At home, Mayu lay on her bed and let out a soft sigh. She already knew that once Monday arrived, her reputation in the economics department, where she was already well known for her looks, would probably explode 100-fold. But there was no helping it. Once you're serialized in a top-tier magazine like Dream Comic, your identity being exposed is only a matter of time. She and her sister, Misaki, sat together in the living room, also waiting for the premiere of One Punch Man. Don't overthink it. There isn't a single top manga artist in this world who never shows their face, Misaki said calmly. If you want to become famous, if you want to one day reach achievements comparable to Rei's, this is a path you have to walk. Rei has been serializing manga non-stop for 2 years under intense public scrutiny from fans. Now it's your turn to reach that stage as well. I know. Mayu pouted. It's just that I've always pretended to be an ordinary girl from an ordinary family at school, and even then people kept confessing to me for no reason and bothering me. Now my identity has suddenly become a manga artist who earns tens of millions a year. It just feels even more annoying. What are you even thinking? Misaki looked at her with an expression that screamed disbelief. The more outstanding you are, the higher your income, and the better your personal conditions, the more likely you are to stay single. Men are very realistic. If they feel that they're inferior to you overall, they'll instinctively back off. How do you know that? Mayu asked, confused. Why do you think I've been single for so many years? Misaki took a sip of tea. While the two sisters chatted and snacked, One Punch Man Season 2 officially began airing. A brand new opening song. Brand new characters. During the 90-second opening sequence, in addition to several distinctive S-class heroes from the first season, a large number of new monsters also appeared. And it was immediately obvious. The animation quality had risen significantly. It feels like Season 2 got a huge budget increase. This animation quality. Mayu stared at the screen, practically drooling. She couldn't help but imagine her own manga one day receiving such a high-level adaptation. Of course, Misaki said. Actually, by around the 6th episode of One Punch Man Season 1 last year, the momentum was already unstoppable. REI, an Illumination animation production company, expanded the team and outsourced part of Season 2's production to several reliable large studios. The cost was higher, but the total investment for the entire second season exceeded 300 million. Misaki glanced at the television screen and smiled. But at this point, that's pocket change. Compared to One Punch Man's current popularity and influence, these costs will be paid back 2 or 3 times over sooner or later. As she spoke, the opening song ended. The episode began with a monster rampaging through the streets. Just as the monster was reveling in its own arrogance, a figure appeared before it without warning. Tall. Wearing a plaid shirt. Deep claw-like scars around his left eye. A terrifyingly calm expression. And then... thump. 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 A heavy, drum-like heartbeat echoed from his chest. The strongest man on earth. King. The King Engine. Mayu swallowed unconsciously, her nerves instantly tightening. Chapter 155, High Praise. The animation, music, atmosphere, and color palette all gave her the same impression. This man was terrifying. Damn it, I really don't want to be a hero. The man's steady, oddly bubbly voice echoed through the sky, accompanied by the cheers of injured civilians who recognized King. Faced with that pressure alone, the lizard monster completely lost its nerve. It immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. The entire sequence left Mayu utterly dumbfounded. Wait, he's not fighting? King just let the monster go? It begged for mercy and that's it. But the plot that followed widened her eyes even further. This terrifyingly hyped hero, portrayed heavily in the first season and believed by many One Punch Man fans to potentially rival the cosmic overlord Boros, went straight to a game store. He bought dating simulation games. Then he happily carried them home. On the way, he even wore an eager smile, clearly looking forward to playing games the moment he got back. Is this a character contrast? Mayu muttered. An S-class hero who's actually a hardcore gaming otaku. Then, on his way home, King encountered a mechanical monster seeking revenge. During the confrontation, the story revealed King's inner thoughts, and he was clearly terrified. Onlookers gathered around, and King even loudly announced his identity to the monster, which looked incredibly powerful and was animated with meticulous detail. In response, the monster calmly drew a massive mechanical greatsword over 10 meters long. I'm here to kill you. The King Engine thundered again. King's eyes changed. This entire scene was also witnessed by Saitama and Genos, master and disciple, standing nearby. Then came the part that made Mayu completely lose it. King suddenly announced that he needed to use the restroom, claiming he couldn't unleash his full power while holding in the urge to pee. The monster, shockingly chivalrous, agreed. It even declared that if King didn't return within the agreed time, it would kill 10 people for every minute he was late. Inside the restroom, King completely broke down. His imposing expression collapsed. Tears welled up in his eyes. From his inner monologue, Mayu finally learned the truth. King was just an ordinary person. What King Engine? What strongest man on earth? He was nothing more than a normal guy who had repeatedly survived monster disasters by sheer coincidence. Because he was the sole survivor at several catastrophic battle sites, the Hero Association mistakenly concluded that he was the one who defeated those monsters. Without ever seeing him fight, they arbitrarily granted him S-class status and gave him a nickname. The strongest man on earth. And now, using the excuse of going to the bathroom, this so-called strongest man simply ran away. Back at the scene, Genos confronted the monster head-on. Saitama, meanwhile, stood to the side in slippers, holding green onions and cabbage he'd just bought from the supermarket, casually supervising the fight. After watching for a bit, Saitama simply left, allowing his disciple to continue battling alone. Pfft! Wow, ha ha ha, this is ridiculous. Mayu burst out laughing. Beside her, Misaki could only shrug. Both sisters were far too absorbed in the plot to say anything else. How did Rei come up with a character like this? Mayu gasped between laughs. This contrast is insane. Then her laughter suddenly paused. Wait, he survived multiple world-ending monster disasters. If he didn't defeat them, then who did? An answer surfaced in her mind. No way, is it really that? Sure enough, the next scene confirmed it. Saitama followed King home. Then he hid behind him and watched him play dating simulation games. While Genos fought a gigantic mechanical monster outside, Saitama and King were inside, intensely competing in video games. By the way, Saitama asked casually, why did you run away earlier? Genos is fighting that thing for you right now. Aren't you supposed to be an incredibly powerful S-class hero? Why are you playing games here? What the hell? Saitama had genuinely thought King was a powerful, lonely individual like himself. He'd heard the title Strongest Man on Earth and wanted to test King's strength. Mayu's expression became completely unhinged, tears streaming down her face from laughter. At that moment, another gigantic monstrous bird, 5 or 6 stories tall, attacked. Its enormous head smashed into the room. Saitama casually raised one hand and blocked it, protecting King behind him. The contrast was overwhelming. Saitama's absolute ease. King's sheer terror. So cool. Mayu's eyes sparkled. They're already at your doorstep, Saitama said, glancing back. Aren't you going to fight? S-class rank 7, King. King's mental state completely collapsed. He was about to be crushed by the fear of death. He decided to confess everything before he died. He was an imposter. Just an ordinary person. He had survived a few disasters, been given an absurd title, and lost the courage to take it off. I actually... King began desperately. At that exact moment, the monstrous bird launched a ferocious attack. The bird's screech, King's confession, and Saitama's punch rang out simultaneously. With a single blow, Saitama punched a massive hole straight through the building. Really? Saitama said calmly, looking at King. Your entire resume is fake. At that moment, King remembered. Countless times, when he had narrowly escaped death at the hands of monsters, there was always someone who appeared to save him. That man was tall, imposing, and handsome. And he had hair. It was that man's achievements that King had unknowingly taken upon himself, rising all the way to 7th place among the strongest heroes in the world. Now, as he looked at Saitama, the two figures overlapped in his mind. King broke down in tears. For the first time in his life, he told someone the truth. He spoke of the pressure that came with the title, the constant fear of death, the endless pursuit by monsters, the expectations and worship of the masses, and the way children looked at him as a savior. He didn't dare to shatter those expectations. Yet he also lacked the strength to live up to them. Saitama listened quietly, his expression calm and unchanging. No matter what you say, Saitama finally spoke, you're still the strongest hero in everyone's hearts. Or, King, are you planning to stop being a hero? I can't make up my mind, King replied softly. The final scene of the episode showed Saitama jumping down dozens of floors, green onions and cabbage still in hand. As he left, he spoke his last words to King. Then why don't you just become stronger? The ending song began to play. The smile on Mayu's face slowly faded. She had thought King was nothing more than a comedic character. So why did it hurt this much? Whether born from vanity or circumstance, King had been given the title of the strongest man in the world. He had carried it on his shoulders, becoming a symbol of hope for countless civilians. He couldn't cry in public. He couldn't reveal the truth. He had to maintain the image of an invincible hero, a hidden trump card of the Hero Association, simply to give people confidence. Yet in the end, he was just an ordinary person. Mayu glanced at the time. It only took 20 minutes, she murmured. 20 minutes to create a character this moving. Indeed, Misaki said quietly. "Rei is truly unbelievable. After this episode airs, all the doubts about One Punch Man Season 2 will disappear." And the facts proved her right. After the episode aired, praise flooded the internet. Major animation forums were filled with discussion threads about One Punch Man. "It's incredible. More episodes, please. Teacher Shyroane is absurdly good." So King was pretending the whole time. "My stomach hurt from laughing in the first half, and I cried in the second half." King knows what it feels like to be saved by a hero. That's why, even as an ordinary person, he maintained the King persona. Because he knows he is the light in everyone else's hearts. This character is insanely well written. Best character so far besides Saitama. Teacher Shyroane is god tier. This episode proves it. Loved it. Completely satisfying. 10 points isn't the limit of my rating. It's the limit of the scoring system. Who said Season 2 would be boring because Boros was already the strongest monster? Now you understand what genius looks like. The protagonist of this episode wasn't Saitama or a monster. It was an ordinary person. This anime always makes me laugh until I cry. I don't even realize it happening. There's no main storyline. The plot is too loose. Does that even matter? What enemy can stop Saitama? Extremely satisfied. Keep going, Teacher Shyroane. Amid this overwhelming praise, the viewership ratings for the first episode of One Punch Man Season 2 were announced the next day. The premiere achieved a 5.76% rating, peaked at 6.39%, and averaged 6.15% across the entire episode. It perfectly inherited the popularity of the previous season, trailing its final episode by only 0.03%. But that 6.18% from the end of Season 1 had been the peak. For Season 2, 6.15% was merely the beginning. Anyone in the animation industry could understand what that meant. Even after a 2-week hiatus, the show's momentum had not diminished at all. More perceptive professionals had already begun to sense it. The storm that One Punch Man was about to unleash might be far greater than anyone had imagined. If this trend continued, the series was no longer just a highly popular anime. It was on the path to becoming a true phenomenon. It was absurd. There was no massive capital backing it. Shyroane had invested nearly everything into production, leaving little for promotion. And yet, had this anime truly reached this level through nothing but quality and word of mouth?
Thanks for listening.